Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council regular meeting for this Monday evening, March 2nd. I now call this meeting to order. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Certainly, Mayor Lorraine. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Here.
Councilmember Sviako-Goditsky.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Lorraine.
Here.
Councilmember Newsom.
Here.
Thank you and welcome, everyone. We're excited to be here in person with options for those who are not here in person to still participate virtually. Thank you for your cooperation and for helping us maintain an efficient and accessible meeting environment. There are several ways to participate tonight. For those attending in person, you can complete a request to speak slip and hand it to the city clerk. If you are participating remotely, you can use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And when you're called upon, please press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will be available until I close public comment periods for each specific item. And for members who may be watching us on YouTube, if you wish to provide live public comment, please note that we don't offer that on YouTube at this time. You'll need to join the meeting through the Zoom webinar instead, using the access information listed on our agenda, which is available on our website at cityofsanmateo.org. We'll begin tonight's meeting with a ceremonial item celebrating Women's History Month, and we have a proclamation. We also have some esteemed guests with us. I'd like to invite to the podium Eileen Casanetto and Megan Kroll with San Mateo County's Commission on the Status of Women. And thank you very much for being with us tonight. I could read the proclamation and then turn it to you, or if you'd like to start us off, I'd be happy. Very well. Just indulge me for a moment while I read this proclamation. Whereas Women's History Month celebrates the contributions women have made to the United States and recognizes the achievements of women over the course of American history in a variety of fields. And whereas this year's theme set by the National Women's History Alliance is Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future, to encompass financial stability, community resilience, leadership succession, and intergenerational equity. And whereas this theme affirms that shaping a sustainable future means fostering systems that support both people and the planet. And whereas women who have devoted their lives and talents deserve to be recognized for the barriers they've broken and the challenges they've overcome. And whereas women across all cultures serve in roles that are central to the advancement of society, and Women's History Month is a time to reaffirm our commitment to achieving gender equality, reflect on progress made toward resolving workforce disparities, and recognize that much remains to be done to improve the status of women and girls. And whereas societies where women are given opportunities for equal participation are stronger, and in order to achieve peace, security, and full respect for human rights, women must never be denied a voice. Now, therefore, I, Adam Lorraine, Mayor of San Mateo, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the month of March 2026 as Women's History Month. Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Lorraine and members of the City Council. Thank you for your leadership and service to our community. And a special acknowledgement to Deputy Mayor Nicole Fernandez, who knows firsthand the work of the Commission on the Status of Women and the impact it has across our county. My name is Eileen Casanetto, and I live here in San Mateo. Women's History Month brings visibility to voices that have historically been underrepresented, and reminds us that recognition helps create pathways for participation and opportunities to write ourselves into a world and a future that we all want to see.
I'm Megan Kroll. I'm also a San Mateo resident. I'm also the Commission's newest commissioner. So on behalf of the Commission on the Status of Women, thank you for issuing this proclamation. When we formally recognize Women's History Month, we are not simply making time on a calendar. We are affirming that the contributions, leadership, resilience, and innovation of women and girls in our community deserve to be seen, celebrated, and supported. For our underrepresented groups especially, visibility is powerful. It signals belonging. It tells young people that their leadership is possible. It tells working mothers, entrepreneurs, educators, and advocates that their contributions are strengthening our entire community. And it reminds us all that equity requires intention. And if I can just add one small plug, the Women's Hall of Fame celebration is Friday night, March 6th at 4:30 in the Farallon Room at Skyline College. One of our honorees this year is Allison Suzuki, who lives in San Mateo, and her leadership and service exemplify the very spirit that we are celebrating tonight. So we hope that you will be able to come join us. Thank you again for this commitment.
Excellent. Thank you. And if you'll stay just a moment, we can have a photo commemorating the event with the City Council. Thank you, everyone, for that moment. We are now going to move beyond the ceremonial portion of tonight's meeting, which includes the business items being considered by the council tonight. For that reason, I would just like to remind all in the room and online that we will be enforcing rules of decorum from this point forward in the meeting. As such, we do not allow for cheering, jeering, or booing during the business portion of the meeting, as this tends to put a chill on public comment. Our goal is to ensure that all perspectives are heard. Our motto is give respect, get respect, and we appreciate your cooperation with this. Mr. City Clerk, can you please read our consent calendar?
Certainly. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 2, 2026 City of San Mateo Legislative Platform Approval. Item number 3, reclassification of Administrative Technician position to Housing Specialist 2 position approval. And finally, item number 4, Park and Recreation Commission Appointment Subcommittee Appointment Recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any member of the council who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on any consent calendar item, now would be the time to make your comment. This would be for consent calendar items only. City Clerk, are there any public comments on consent calendar items?
Mayor Loren, we have not received any requests to speak on the consent calendar.
Okay, thank you. Then I will close public comment on the consent calendar and ask for a motion from council to approve.
So moved.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash,
Yes.
Councilmember Svirko-Gaditsky,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez, and Mayor Lorraine.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And before we move on to general public comment, as this item was just approved in the consent items of council, I would like to invite Maya Ray Osinki to the podium and take an oath of office, if so desired, with City Clerk Martin McTaggart. Congratulations. Excellent. Now we have a new youth commissioner, and I appreciate everybody's indulgence on that. I realize I said a little speech about not clapping, cheering, and jeering, and then we had something that was kind of worth clapping for. So at this point, we're going to have serious business. Next on the agenda is general public comment. So members of the public who are wishing to comment on any item that's not appearing on our agenda tonight may address the City Council at this time. State law prevents council from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments, though, may be referred to staff for follow-up. This public comment section is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that's subject to council's discretion and can be extended if council wishes to do so. If needed, an opportunity for additional public comment may also be provided later in the agenda. City Clerk, can you please tally the total number of requests to speak on general public comment?
Certainly. If you're in our chambers and wish to speak on items not on the agenda, please provide me with a request to speak slip. We will be closing the request to speak period momentarily. Likewise, if you're in our virtual environment, please raise your hand now. I will give you just a few moments to do so. Mayor Lorraine, there is no request to speak on general public comment.
Thank you. I will close public comment for general comment and move on to the next item of business, which would be item number 5, 668 East 3rd Avenue, a new multifamily residential development, PA 2025-20 or 025. That's what I get for saying that. And we have a presentation from Elizabeth Gagliardi, our associate planner. Good evening, Elizabeth, and thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Lorraine, City Council, and members of the public. I'm Liz Gagliardi, Associate Planner with the Community Development Department, with tonight's staff presentation. So this item is for a proposed 8-story multifamily residential building located at 668 East 3rd Avenue. It's also referred to as the Gateway Project. Some quick overview before I dive in. I'm going to cover the project background, then move into a code and policy review, wrapping up with a summary of public notice and our recommendation to the council. Starting with some project history, this application came in originally with a preliminary application under the Housing Crisis Act, or Senate Bill 330, on November 13th, 2024. Then the applicant held their neighborhood informational meeting on March 19th of 2025, followed shortly by submittal of the formal application on April 2nd. Since then, it was reviewed by city staff and refined by the applicant to ensure compliance with local and state laws. The project is exempt from CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, under Assembly Bill 130, which is a newer CEQA exemption that I'll cover some more later in the rest of the presentation. This map shows the project location, which is highlighted in blue. As you can see, it is just east of downtown San Mateo and also close by just to the southeast of the downtown Caltrain station. Zooming in a little bit, the project site, which is highlighted in yellow in the middle there, is bounded by East 3rd Avenue to the north, South Delaware Street to the west, South El Dorado Street to the east, and East 4th Avenue to the south. The project site currently has an existing one-story commercial building, which will be demolished. And to the south, there are 2 parcels on the same block, which are not a part of this project scope. These contain an existing office building and gas station, which will remain. Also wanted to highlight here Block 21 on this slide, which is across the street from South Delaware. This is a project with an improved entitlement that has not yet been constructed, but just wanted to add that context as well. So in addition to Block 21, there are several other either recently approved and built or soon to come in the pipeline projects in this area. So just wanted to highlight here the proximity of some other projects downtown to the project site. And happy to come back to this if we'd like to explore any of those in more detail. So now that we've looked at the project location, I'll dive into what's proposed at the project site. As I mentioned before, this is for an 8-story multifamily residential building with 73 covered parking stalls. Those stalls are split up between one level of below ground parking and garage space internal to the building on the ground floor and 2nd story. That garage entrance for vehicles to both enter and exit is off of South El Dorado Street. The upper floors of the project are entirely made up of residential units, a total of 128 of them. And the project includes residential amenities such as a fitness room, some amenity decks on the 3rd and 8th floor, and a common room for the tenants on the 8th floor. This chart just shows a little more detail for how the 128 units are broken up. As you can see, it's a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. 108 of those will be market rate and 20 will be affordable units. So of those 20 affordable units, 10 are at the very low income affordable level and another 10 at the moderate income level. This shows a site plan of the proposed building. This is the ground floor layout. As you can see, the driveway access is off of South El Dorado Street there to the right, and parking is oriented towards the back of the building with units oriented on that main frontage along 3rd Avenue. Moving into the entitlements for this project, there are 2 planning entitlements required. The first being a site plan and architectural review for that new multifamily building. This does go to City Council for approval because it is over 55 feet in height. And also a site development planning application for the removal of major vegetation. So there are 9 trees that will be removed from the site, including 4 protected trees, and the project proposes replacement planting of 16 new trees. In addition to that local context, there's also several state laws that come into play with this project, the first being state density bonus law. This project does include a stacked density bonus, so it's receiving 50% density increase for the first 10 affordable units and another 50% density increase for the next 10 at the moderate income level. Under state density bonus law, the project would be eligible for up to 3 concessions and unlimited waivers, and the project takes advantage of the full allowable density increase available under state law. So it effectively doubles that base density of 64 units to 128. The applicant has not requested any concessions, but has identified several waivers from different development standards, which I'll dive into a bit more next. So the site has a general plan land use designation of mixed use medium 2, which establishes the base height and density standards. Under this general plan designation, the maximum density or base density is 99 dwelling units per acre, and the maximum height up to 6 stories. As you can see, what's proposed is a little bit over that, which is achieved through the density bonus, doubling the density. And it also includes a waiver to exceed this height limit going up to 8 stories. The project is in the Central Business District Support Zoning District and also within the Gateway sub-area of the Downtown Area Plan, which establishes the specific setbacks and development standards, which are summarized in this chart. The big things to note here are that the project does include waivers to setback and step back standards. Additionally, this project is exempt from minimum parking requirements under Assembly Bill 2097, which I will explain a little bit more in the coming slides, but does still provide 73 parking stalls, and it does meet the local requirements for bicycle parking and loading zones. This slide includes a summary of all of the waivers that are included for this project. So I won't get into these in much detail now in the interest of time, but happy to come back to any of these if there are questions on what waivers are being requested from the objective design standards, zoning, any of those. So in addition to local policies, there, as I mentioned before, are several state laws that apply to this project. The first of these is the Housing Crisis Act, or Senate Bill 330. The main thing to note here is that this project is vested to the date that the preliminary application was submitted to the city, which is November 13th, 2024. So this freezes the development standards and fee structure in place at that time for this project. As this is a housing project, it is also subject to the Housing Accountability Act, or HAA, which limits the city's ability to deny the project, reduce its density, or render it infeasible if objective standards are met. Additionally, as I mentioned before, Assembly Bill 130, or AB 130, is a newer CEQA exemption for qualifying housing projects. This project does qualify and is therefore exempt from further environmental review and subject to an expedited review process. Additionally, state law under Assembly Bill 2097 removes the minimum parking requirements for any project within 1/2 mile from a major public transit stop. So since this project is within 1/2 mile of the downtown Caltrain station, it is exempt from providing minimum parking. The project also satisfies the city's local below market rate affordability requirements for the units, stacking the 10 very low income units with an additional 10 moderately affordable units, both to meet local requirements and achieve additional density under the state density bonus law. And those below market rate units are distributed throughout the project to meet local requirements. So moving on to the design review, this project meets several key elements of the city's objective design standards, and it also includes waivers from several of these standards that would otherwise preclude construction of the building. The project is designed with influences from Mediterranean and Spanish Revival styles with a contemporary expression. Along East 3rd Avenue, the project has 4 townhome-style units, which you can see here are integrated into the main facade. These have separate entrances from the rest of the building, as well as decorative balconies and planter boxes. So while the project does include some waivers from the Gateway sub-area design standards, they have integrated the design to be more pedestrian scale and fit with the larger context of the building. This view here just provides another look at those townhome style units along East 3rd Avenue. You can see the planter boxes and entry features. And this is a view of the lobby entrance at the corner of East 3rd Avenue and South Delaware Street. As you can see, they have included several arch features, decorative tile, a cornice above the arches to really distinguish that entry feature. In addition to that entry feature, there are balconies or Juliet balconies proposed at each unit, and several other features to get at that Spanish style. Zooming out a little bit, here we see the full view from East 3rd Avenue. The project does include a waiver to some of our massing standards, one of which is to provide a distinct base, body, and top. As you can see, the top color change and material change does not span the full facade of the building, but there has been an effort made to address that standard and still break up the massing a bit within the context of the building. Here we see the view from South Delaware Street. And another corner feature, this is at the corner of East 3rd Avenue and South El Dorado Street, one of the townhome units, and this has been designed to meet the local objective design standards. This is the view from South El Dorado Street. And finally, the rear elevation. This does include a blank wall, which is something that is a waiver request from the objective design standards, which otherwise don't allow blank walls. But there has been effort made to orient this towards the interior of the project site to minimize the impacts of that blank wall, and also some stucco relief added along that. And this only spans the first 2 stories where that parking garage is located. So finally, a summary of the fees. I will note that these are estimates. In total, the project provides somewhere around $4.2 million in impact fees. That's excluding some of the calculations that require more information when we get the building valuation for public art in lieu fees. But the project does contribute to all of these fee categories. As I mentioned before, the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under the new Assembly Bill 130. This law came into effect June 20th, 2025. It also includes some requirements for tribal consultation, which have been met as a part of the application procedure. For public noticing, the project did hold a required neighborhood meeting prior to their formal submittal back in March of 2025, and all public noticing requirements were met in advance of tonight's hearing. The project went before the Planning Commission on February 10th, 2026, and was recommended to the City Council for approval by a unanimous vote with 1 commissioner recused. The Planning Commission did add a recommendation to provide flexibility for the applicant to propose a more colorful decorative tile at the project entry feature. And if the council would like to include a condition to address that recommendation, we've provided some draft language to add that additional flexibility for the tile here as well. So that brings us to our final slide, the staff recommendation to adopt a resolution to approve this project, finding it exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Assembly Bill 130 with the required conditions of approval. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I believe before we go to public comment, we will now hear a presentation from the applicant.
Do you have the slides? Okay, and Liz, you can go to the next one, actually. Okay, great. Good evening, Mayor Lorraine, Deputy Mayor Fernandez, council members, and city staff. I'm Don Peterson. I represent Prometheus, owner and developer of the subject property. I'm joined here this evening by Jonathan Stone. He'll be the lead development director for the project. And we're very pleased to be with you. Project team's also represented here tonight, led by Alan Jones of Jones Architecture, and he'll be up here momentarily to walk you through the project design. Other members of the team are here. They can be called upon as necessary if there are any questions that come up. We very much appreciate the opportunity to be here and discuss the project proposal located at 668 East 3rd Avenue. A big thank you to staff for covering quite a bit about the project in both the staff report and in the presentation. This project has taken on various iterations over the years, even before the current application, which just came in 2024. But in the end, we're very pleased to have settled on this multifamily housing application that's before you tonight. Before turning the presentation over to Alan, I do want to provide a brief word on Prometheus. As you know, we're active locally as owner, investor, and developer. We're a family-owned private real estate company. Our history dates back over 50 years. And over those years, our primary focus has been housing. We're a longtime provider and operator of rental housing here in San Mateo and throughout the South Bay. And also, we typically develop for the long term, so we remain vested stakeholders in the developments within which, or the communities within which we develop. This commitment is no better exemplified than here in San Mateo. We've maintained a headquarters here locally for decades, and we do feel our most recently constructed brickline building with its mix of uses and tenancies will serve as a catalyst for further investment and economic activity in and around the downtown. On the screen, we've included several of our properties and planned developments in and around downtown, including Brickline, and also we show the Metropolitan Apartments. That's one of our earlier developments in the city, and that property, as mentioned, is located across El Dorado from the subject property that we're discussing here tonight. Again, pleased to be with you, and with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Alan, who will cover the project design in greater detail. Thank you very much.
Alan Jones, Jones Architecture. I'm pleased to be with you here tonight. It's a project we're very excited about. The slide up on the screen right now is a map taken from the 2040 general plan. The project site is indicated with a leader with a blue dot. It's located, as Liz mentioned, in the mixed-use medium 2 zone. The dashed radiuses are half-mile radiuses from the Caltrain station. You can see that it's within less than a quarter mile of a Caltrain station. Go to the next slide, Liz. The site truly is a gateway site, shown here in red. The blue line is the vision of Gateway. The pink zone is the downtown plan area, and it's adjacent to the historic downtown. The significant item here is that the vision of Gateway prescribes a Mediterranean Spanish Revival style architecture, which the team has taken to heart. The site is also located directly adjacent to major transportation routes. An overall rendering of the site where you can see the Spanish Mediterranean style revival architecture that's consistent with objective design standards. We've really taken that to heart. It's an 8-story building. The parking is fully concealed within the heart of the building. As you can see on the corner, there are arches that open up to the lobby and a corner plaza. To the left are the ground story townhouses that Liz mentioned. On the right, the bump out is of the parking garage, which is fully concealed behind simulated windows. The 3rd story has terraces that open up, covered terraces for the units. The top of the building, the cornice lines are varied, accentuating the modulation of the different portions of the building. Again, more covered terraces, overhangs with texture and exposed rafters. You go to the next slide. So a little bit more detail on the contemporary Mediterranean architecture. The body of the building is a light colored stucco. The windows are bronze colored, elegant proportions. There are inset balconies that have a border, a deep opening around them. The 3rd story covered terrace you can see here with the exposed framing, kind of the colonnade that covers the units. The ground story townhouses are clad in brick. Deep porch opening that has decorative railing. There's an inset balcony on the 2nd story. A lot of variety with kind of materials and detailing. The planters that Liz mentioned with the landscape buffering from the sidewalk. If you can go to the next slide. And then the ODS requires that the project complies with 13 out of 7 or 7 out of 13 standards. The project, in our minds, complies with 8 of those, including multi-level roofs that I mentioned, the asymmetrical massing, arches, ornamental details, the multi-pane windows at the townhouse units, decorative tiles, which are in the niche of the courtyard near the lobby, ornamental door and window soprans that are located at the Juliet and the balconies, and then deep recessed openings where all the windows are set deep into the facade. Even though the project is an urban site, the building is pulled back. It's fully buffered from the sidewalk with a landscape strip all the way around. You can see the corner plaza opening up to 3rd and Delaware with paving that matches the crosswalks. And then go ahead and list. And then a final rendering that is a little bit closer to the lobby where you can see the tile in the corner plaza, the arches that open up to the lobby, the townhouse units to the left, and then the variety of roof lines. Go to the next. And then a little closer vignette where you can get into the quality of the detailing with the deep openings, the brick, the multi-pane windows, the decorative railings, the overhang with texture. You know, it's a building that really comes down and meets the pedestrian realm, I think, in a nice way that we're really excited about. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. We have lots of plans and exhibits and technical details in the appendix that I'm happy to go to if there are questions, but I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. And at this time, I would like to open public comment. So if you are here and you'd wish to comment, you can hand a speaker slip to the city clerk. If you're online on your phone, please raise your hand. And city clerk, do we have any requests for public comment?
We do, Mayor Lorraine. As Mayor Lorraine mentioned, if you're in chambers, please provide me with a request to speak slip. If you're in our virtual environment, please raise your hand now. I will give you just a moment or two to do so. Mayor Lorraine, that is 2 requests to speak. So that sets the timer at 3 minutes per speaker, and we'll begin with our in-chambers request to speak from Darren Clark. Darren Clark, please join us at the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Darren Clark. I'm a field rep for Carpenters Local 217, representing workers across San Mateo County. Projects like this one has potential of being a great development and is another example of the city of San Mateo doing the right thing when it comes to meeting its residents' need for housing. Doing the right thing includes selecting a responsible contractor for the job, one who is committed to upholding and supporting labor standards such as a livable wage for its workers, promoting state-certified apprenticeship programs, providing accessible health care, and participating in local hiring practices. This again is only possible when we encourage contractors and developers to do the right thing. As you know, a livable wage is fundamental for workers to support their families and to thrive in San Mateo. Establishing a fair wage standard can also help alleviate the financial strain on public support systems and reinforce economic stability within our city. We must consider the cost of public safety net resulting from low road employment practices common in residential constructions. Supporting state-certified apprenticeship programs are also crucial for encouraging the next generation of skilled carpenters. Investing in this incentive will ensure a skilled and safe workforce for years to come. And access to healthcare is not a luxury, but a basic human right. Construction workers work in one of the most dangerous industries in our country, and they deserve quality healthcare to safeguard their well-being and that of their dependents. Lastly, by prioritizing a local hiring practice, we strengthen our community by reinvesting in local talent and business. Favoring local hires will foster economic growth and create a more inclusive workforce reflective of our city's diversity. These factors are curtailed on all developments, so I urge you to advocate for a responsible contractor on this project. Our door is open and we welcome dialogue with the developer and contractors alike. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to our virtual environment where our speaker will be Amy Wong. Amy, please go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hello, this is actually Ben Tai, and my family effectively lives across the street from this development. We're very happy to see that this development no longer includes offices or office space. However, we're very disappointed that it adds to the very long and growing list of small businesses that have been lost in downtown. It's common to have developments have a requirement for some type of public good, and to hear from the developer in the neighborhood meetings for them to say that retail space is not economically feasible is very disappointing. Unlike other public good requirements such as parks or I don't know, other fees, a retail space would provide them with income. So I urge the developer to reconsider providing reasonably cost retail space. And I also urge the city to start thinking about how it can update its master plan or any ordinances to require large developments like this who are taking away small businesses to include a requirement to replace it before not only the charm of downtown is lost, but its soul as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, with that, we have concluded public comment.
Thank you, and thank you to those who gave comment. At this time, I'd like to ask my council colleagues if they have any questions or comments. Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yeah, I just have a quick.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Through the mayor, would Mr. Dahl or the city manager be able to talk to us about, in addressing the last comment, about what restrictions the city can put on a project like this, which is an AB 130 project?
I guess we would need to understand a little bit more about what you're interested in, but in general, we're very limited in the type of conditions or requirements we can add unless they are supported by an objective standard that's already on the books as of the vesting date for this project.
Okay, so just to clarify, we can request that the developer include some of those items that community members or neighbors have suggested, such as preservation of small retail, but they don't have to comply with us. Is that?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to Prometheus for being here tonight and working with the community. I've got a bunch of sort of miscellaneous questions I would appreciate. Could you take us through, I guess this is directed at Prometheus, how you came up with 73 parking units, which, which is about, 0.5 per,
Happy to address. Good to go here. Don't need, okay. Jonathan Stone with Prometheus. Happy to address the comment and question. So on all things parking for this project, we studied throughout our portfolio and a lot of data what the best or our understanding of what the usage profile was in projects that are in close proximity to transit, specifically Caltrain stations. And throughout a portfolio, we have a good amount of data of what that utilization is. And it's roughly a 0.5 ratio. So at the time this application came in, we had, I think, about 44 spaces. So it would be less than a 0.5 ratio. Throughout the course of the project, we added to that with significant cost going down a whole level of subterranean parking. So getting to 73, which is roughly a 0.63, 0.64 ratio, that gets us to and above the 0.5 parking ratio that I referenced earlier. And again, that's in line with the usage that we're seeing. So just one example, the Brickline project, the former TRAG site, the residential portion there is parked at a 1-to-1 ratio. But the usage that we've seen since it's opened has been at 0.5.
Okay.
So that's how we got to that number.
And
of parking
the
spaces.
Metropole would be similar?
Well, the Metropolitan was built 20 years ago
Okay.
and has a much higher, more, I would say, suburban of that era parking requirement. And so there's vacancy that is present there. And so the usage is more in line with the 0.5 that I referenced previously, but in an older type of product. The units are also bigger there.
Right.
Correct. Much
Okay,
larger.
thank you. You might as well stay here.
Okay.
Okay, so you don't have to go up and down and up and down. Let's see, in terms of, I very much appreciate the design, and Mr. Jones, the look of the building. I'm wondering if there are other opportunities to maybe add a little more color to the building. I definitely am in favor of the, excuse me, this is my phone, my bad. Go away. But I definitely take the Planning Commission's recommendation about looking at color tile in the entry. And was there ever any review of the back, the blank wall, and including any kind of tile on that? Understanding it's a garage, but...
Sorry, so the tile at the entry on 3rd and Delaware.
Well, that's one thing. I was saying I like that, and I like putting color on that. And I'm wondering if there was ever any discussion about trying to break up the blank wall on the back with any kind of...
I'll take an initial stab. So the blank wall in the not too distant future, just given the proximities and our familiarity, the familiarity that we have, there will be redevelopment of those in the not too distant future. So that blank wall and any monies that went into make it more beautiful than it already is, that would probably go away, and those monies might be spent elsewhere.
Fair enough.
So the tile on the corner, we have a tile that is in place. There certainly is opportunity to make that tile better or different, and we're certainly up for that conversation. I think the condition of approval or the language towards that is something we're open for, and we'll continue to explore.
Great.
I think the only thing I wanted to add to that was that in keeping with Spanish, Mediterranean style architecture, it's typically characterized by, light colored stucco, fairly, but the walls are almost the backdrop, and the ornamental features on the building, the railings and the overhangs, which are warmer and add color and warmth to the building, are really where the interest comes through. I also think landscaping is a good opportunity to bring color in. I know it's something that the landscape architect's been working on to let landscaping, the decorative tile and those things come forward, and then have the palette of the building be a little bit more neutral in keeping with the historic style.
And I would very much encourage the landscape architect to think about planting that is Spanish Mediterranean. And
we've talked about like bougainvillea and like bright pops of color. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's great. And given the fact that part of town, there's a lot of discussion about the neighbors wanting more public lighting, overall. I mean, we certainly in part of the city, we're doing that. What kind of discussion have you had about what kind of lighting you can add to the project?
So the lighting topic was brought up at the neighborhood meeting roughly a year ago, as mentioned by Liz. And in that, a number of comments came up, but lighting was brought up. Lighting will be for the project implemented per city standards. The full photometric analysis takes place during the building permit review process. But the lighting standards that are in the off-site plans currently are representative of the standards and codes that are in place currently. But again, that'll be further vetted out during the next phase of drawing development. With regards to the comments that were received a year ago, I think which seemed to be more represented broadly of the neighborhood and several blocks away, it seems as though there may not be the lighting that the people who live throughout that neighborhood may or may not want. And I think that's more of a conversation with Public Works Department. We have heard recently that in I believe it was a city council study session as of late with regards to the neighborhood to the north, that discussed both bicycles and street lighting, that 3 various concepts were presented. So that may be something of worthwhile to continue the conversation in the immediacy of this project.
Yeah, great. And I would encourage the lighting that you do as part of your external to really be warm as opposed to, safe and unfriendly.
We certainly agree.
Yeah,
with that.
okay,
Yes.
good. That's, and then let's see. I noticed in the plans that the only actual studio, as opposed to an urban studio, was one of the BMR very low units. How did that get decided?
So just more broadly in terms of how we define small units, the term urban is technically a studio.
Right.
It's just a larger studio, and it's a studio when we know that studios are desirable, part of there's a need in the marketplace. This is a design towards that effort that we find is very successful and sought after. So the single one that you see is really just a product of how the design laid out, but the intent was that is captured in the overall targeted studio number. But with regards to how the city picks up and spreads their mix of units at each affordability level, that single unit gets captured into that calculation. So that's one way to answer that.
Right, but that single unit was a studio as opposed to an urban studio.
Correct, but the urban studio is still a studio.
Through the mayor, I can also pull back up the unit breakdown if it's helpful
Thank you.
to look at that. So can we reshare? Sorry. Okay, so here we see the unit breakdown. So just to clarify on the BMR units, the very low income, which are in the VLI column, that first one there, those are the units that are counting towards the city's inclusionary requirements. So the one studio unit is included as an affordable unit, but it's at the moderate level. And a distinction here, those moderate affordable units will still be managed by the city through the BMR program, but they're beyond the requirements of the city's inclusionary program, which just requires 15%. So that those additional 10 units are used to achieve the double density bonus, but they're not counting towards the city's local requirements, if that makes sense. So that one is identified as a moderate affordable unit, and then the studio distribution is really the very low income distribution is really what we were looking at to satisfy the local BMR requirements.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Let's see. Just one last question about the trees. And could you talk a little bit about what you're taking out? I understand there are 4 protected trees that will be going out and what will be going in.
Sure, and Charlie, our landscape architect, I believe, is on the line. But we are intending to replace older trees, many of which are not in the greatest health condition, with trees that are representative of the guidelines of the city, so that there will be a uniform tree canopy throughout the city in line with the goals that are set forth by the city arborist. And so while there are 4 protected trees, just due to their size, they're not the healthiest of trees along that corridor, I think is the easiest way to answer that question.
Okay, great. All right, well, in general, I am very supportive of this project. I think you've really done a great job with the design in trying to make a contemporary building still harken back to the neighborhood and to the types of buildings. And I hope we see more examples of that as we get buildings coming forward. So
Thank you.
Those are my comments and questions.
Thank you very much. Council members Fiorko-Graditsky.
Thank you. This, I guess, is for city staff or the developers. So there's multiple waivers being requested for the design and the development standards. Could you walk us through which ones are being waived and why?
Sure. So through the mayor, I pulled back up the slide, which this is a summary of all of the waivers that have been included with the project. So there are numerous, so happy to kind of dive into any of them in more detail if there's further questions, but I'll go through them kind of one by one. The first is for the loading berth requirements. So there are specific dimensions for loading stalls and distance from the intersection that need to be met. This has been waived, although I from what I recall, the distance is close, despite the waiver. And this was reviewed together with our Public Works Department to ensure that it's still going to be a functional loading zone and meet the needs of the project. So there's no concern for health or safety, but they are requesting a waiver to that. The next one, turning radii, has to do with the radius of the ramps within the internal parking garage. And again, was reviewed together with Public Works to make sure that those will be functional, but they are slightly different from the city's listed requirements for turning radius. Building height is a little more straightforward. They're requesting an 8-story building where 6 would otherwise be required. The blank walls is kind of that portion of the building along the rear facade and a little bit on El Dorado, I believe. The objective design standards do not allow blank walls over 20 feet in length, which this is. So that's a requested waiver. For the massing breaks, I believe I touched on this a little bit with that base, body, and top of the building. It is close to that standard, but doesn't achieve it across the full top of the building. So that's a requested waiver. They've also requested waivers to the facade design. This has to do with particularly the townhome style units. The design standards for this portion of the downtown plan are geared more towards a lower scale, like townhome style of development. So there were several standards that were just incongruent with an 8-story building and have been waived for that reason. Setbacks and stepbacks are similarly written to kind of that townhome style, lower scale development in this area, and the building is a bit closer to the property lines than would otherwise be required, so that's a requested waiver. For residential entries, this also ties into the objective design standard requirements in the gateway sub area specifically, which is written to require very specific residential entries for individual units. So they have made efforts to incorporate aspects of that, particularly for the townhome units, but there are several details of that are being waived. And that also ties into the ground floor residential entry piece. And then with architectural style and materials, similarly, there are standards that are really geared more towards like a low scale townhome style unit, which this is not. So there are waivers requested with that as well.
Thank you for that. So what other alternative design options were explored before we landed on this?
So through the mayor, I can speak a little bit to what we saw with the staff review, and perhaps the applicant can give context as well. Throughout the iterations that staff reviewed, there were some changes made to kind of further articulate the base, body, and top, as well as the entry feature. I believe the first iteration we reviewed did not include arches along that entryway, and then some changes to refine the entries of the townhome units and define that feature. But otherwise, the building is more or less similar to what was first submitted, although I think the design details have come a long way. Another big change that we saw from first submittal to the final iteration was the driveway design. So the project originally had 2 vehicular driveways on Delaware and El Dorado streets, but the driveway off of Delaware was removed because it did not meet city requirements. They're not supposed to be driveways on arterial streets if there's an alternative option.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you, through the mayor. Thank you, first off, for a great presentation, and also for spending some time speaking with me last week. Overall, I really like the design. I do have a couple of questions, if you would not mind approaching this podium. Just thank you. So we talked about this last week. Thanks again for that.
Yep.
I understand that there's 171 bedrooms with 73 parking spaces, and overall, you guys believe that should be sufficient. One of the things I heard when I was talking to some of the central neighborhood residents was that you had mentioned that if it wasn't, there could be an opportunity to have overflow parking at the Metropolitan because you guys have spaces in that are not utilized. Is that true?
That had been, I think, discussed at some point or mentioned. It's not the intent right now as part of this application, but there is, as mentioned previously, that project is overparked because of its parking requirement from decades ago. Right. And the utilization now is not corresponding to that. So there is, there are underutilized spaces that are there, and that's something that could be considered.
And how will parking work? So 171 bedrooms, 128 units, 73 spaces. Will they be charged for a parking space, or
most likely that's typically how it takes place. So it's
the
people that
BMRs
desire and wish to have a space.
The BMRs will be given complimentary parking spaces, or how does that work?
I forget that detail exactly, but whatever our standard practice is what we would follow.
Yeah, okay. In Bay Meadows, we had some challenges in that when the property managers were charging for the parking spaces, it was putting the BMR rental over the rental unit. So I just want to make sure that we...
Yeah, no, there's specific language on that.
Absolutely.
I can't recall it at this moment, but we follow it. Brickline would be the example that's most recent. And
I didn't hear very much, and I'm curious, is this a completely green building, meaning no gas, all electric?
It is all gas building. We will be following the...
All electric.
Electric building. We'll be following the city's current codes, because these codes are ever changing, and there are reach codes that are in place. There are EV charging stations built in per those current codes, but again, that's a moving standard. So I believe we have 12 in place level 2 chargers, and then it's EV ready for an additional 58 spaces of that total 73 that's planned.
Fantastic.
But again, that is a continuing, moving or expanding goal, so that could change.
That sounds great. Now, in the picture, it looks like the 4 townhouses on 3rd are slightly stepped back, meaning the building sets back a little. But does it really, or is that an optical illusion the way it's designed?
You're asking if the upper stories step back further from the townhouses?
Right. So
Absolutely. If you look at the 3rd story, there's covered terraces there with a roof that slopes over them. The columns in front of that covered terrace are in plane with the front of the townhouses, so it steps back a full terrace depth.
I think that's incredible. It looks really good. And that's one of the things when I talked to the neighbors over the weekend, they were asking for, and it really shows. So thank you for that. The neighbors are also thrilled that there's 140 bike spaces, so hopefully people won't need more than 73 cars on the space. I guess my last question would be, do we have any concerns with the radius of the turning radius in the parking structure for access for fire and ambulance?
No, through the mayor, that would not be, they wouldn't need to go into for that access. It was reviewed by those reviewing departments, and that's not a concern.
Okay. Is any of the parking at ground level, or is all of the parking subterranean?
No, there's a parking deck at ground level.
So if possible, and you guys will probably want to review this, but initially try to have the electric be at ground level so that you can have more natural ventilation if possible. Because one of the concerns our San Mateo Consolidated Fire has had with new building developments is that the electrical charging stations, if they catch fire, they're basically immediately putting off toxic fumes. And so if you can, please try to design into it so that there's the maximum amount of ventilation.
Yeah, completely agree. And then on Delaware, the second level of the parking garage is open with like simulated windows, and so there's cross ventilation from El Dorado to Delaware.
That's fantastic. That's great design work. And again, loved the design. And the neighbors in Central are very picky about the design of new buildings, and for them to say that they like it means you did a great job. The last idea was the blank wall, which I understand there will be development at some point in the future. The idea was asked by some of the neighbors, and I said I would float it, was to put up some green screens, meaning some trellis that that you could have growing, plants on. At least it would be a little more color than a white wall. So I don't know if you can make that design aesthetic work, but that's something the neighbors had mentioned as well. And beyond that, overall, I'm in support of this project. And again, I commend you on the design. It was very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, I think due to some great questions from my colleagues, I have maybe just one to add, which would be that we heard from a member of the public who advocated for the carpenters and certain labor practices, and I wondered if the applicant could just speak a little to current plans related to those who would construct the project, and whether you'd be interested in speaking with the carpenters.
Sure, happy to. So where we currently stand with the project is we're in the entitlement phase. So our plans are at what's called schematic level design. From here, we move into working drawings, DD and CD level drawings. That's the time when we typically, as an organization, engage a general contractor. So we haven't moved into that time yet, but we are open for all dialogues, and I believe we are currently in discussions and communication with representatives on other projects that we have in San Mateo. So that communication is underway. But on this project, we're just not there yet.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. At this time, I would just like to... Yes.
Just closing back with the question that I had earlier about AB 130, as we have you in front of us, if there could be consideration of commercial space for the tenants that might be losing space, or for those that would be very welcome if that is a possibility.
So yeah, on that topic, I think one of the best ways that we like to discuss the topic is any project where we have retail tenants, if they are expressing concern of any sort, which we have had in several locations, this being one of them, some of that due to lack of customer support, if you will. We've worked with them as best that we can to keep them in place. That's been done here to a certain extent. And tenants that wish to stay in place, we work with them as best we can, both if they know something is going to be redeveloping, we have a broader network of space that is available, and then our contacts within the brokerage community in order to find a home if it can't be found within our portfolio. So all of that communication is in place and underway and will continue.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And I think I'll just, sure, Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you. Thank you through the mayor. And just to kind of echo Deputy Mayor Fernandez's comments, can we make sure that the city does an outreach to all the tenants, and if they're not able to find new properties through Prometheus, if we could help try to facilitate finding them new locations in the city, just as an outreach?
We can gauge interest and do some outreach through our economic development team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate that. Councilmember Spivak-Goodiski, if you have something to add.
I was just going to move to approve.
Well, I appreciate that. Before we go there, I'll just note, I would just like to add a quick comment that I appreciate Deputy Mayor Fernandez, Councilmember Newsom, engaging with the applicant on the subject of retail current uses and the possibility of making sure they remain within the city in some way. That said, I do feel like this project, while it may seem large, depending on the beholder, I think is also, from what I see, in a somewhat confined space, and is using its footprint for an impressive number of residential units. And I do think that's important as well. And we may not be able to get everything we might hope for in every particular project. And So I appreciate the effort to do what we can about what is there today, but I also appreciate what is being brought before us and the positives that can come from this number of units of housing near the downtown train station. So I just wanted to mention that first. I also think I wanted to ask for clarification on the motion, but I see the city attorney may wish to chime in.
Yes, thank you. Briefly, so during the presentation, there was a proposed condition of approval relating to tile work. So I think that council, it would be appropriate for the council to weigh in on whether you wanted to include that condition. And I think it would be beneficial to hear from the applicant whether they were amenable to that condition and have them state either way on the record.
We'd be open for continuing the conversation on tile selection and color and design throughout the working drawing development.
And I think that's in line. The condition simply says the applicant may propose an alternative. It doesn't really impose any particular requirement. So it's just builds into the conditions of approval this possibility, and perhaps it pans out, perhaps it doesn't. But
sure. And just to put it on the record, we will most likely between now and working drawing building permit submittal come up with 2 or 3 options that can be discussed with staff ahead of that submittal.
And I would just like to put in my own particular voice that I think that would make it an even better building to have some color in the tile. So I would support that.
Thank you, Councilmember Shukragazisi, as the person who was thinking of motioning there.
Okay.
How do you feel?
Yes, with motion with the option to have this council weigh in on tile.
well, I think the motion is the staff recommendation with this proposed condition of approval that's on the screen.
All right, accept what Prasanna just said.
Well, just quickly checking in on this. It sounds like we have 2 affirmatives.
I also support the tile discussion.
Excellent. All right, so it sounds like we have at least 3 affirmatives. Now I believe we can continue.
I motion.
Second.
Thank you, City Clerk. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Svirko-Goditsky?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. That will close this item. Thank you for those who came and presented. Thank you for those who spoke. And we now have item number 6, REACH codes for the 2025 code cycle ordinance introduction. We have a presentation from our sustainability analyst, Andrea Chow.
Mr. Mayor, could we take a 3-minute bio break?
Yes. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll take a brief recess in between these items.
Let's come back
Thank
to
you.
8:15.
No, just like 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. That sounds fine. 8:15 is our target. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We have returned, and we will now begin item 6, reach codes for the 2025 code cycle. In ordinance introduction, we have Andrea Chow, our sustainability analyst, and we have some other guests tonight. Taylor, a managing research consultant with TRC, and Blake Hershoff, building electrification programs manager with Peninsula Clean Energy. Thank you all, and good evening.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Lorraine, Deputy Mayor Fernandez, City Council members, and members of the public. My name is Andrea Chow. I'm the sustainability analyst for the city, and I'm also accompanied by two others that I do want to afford the time to provide their introductions.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Honorable Council. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Taylor, and I work for TRC, an environmental consulting company. I am an engineer, and I specialize in building REACH codes, and I have been assisting city staff with the technical elements of this policy.
Hi, my name is Blake Hershoff. I'm the Senior Building Electrification Programs Engineer for Peninsula Clean Energy. I help manage this technical assistance program that we sponsor, and also help design our rebates along with a couple colleagues in the room. So happy to answer any questions if you have something on programs. I'm also a licensed engineer if something gets a little technical. Thank you.
Great, and I will be leading today's presentation with PCE and TRC staff available for fielding questions. Tonight, I have for you staff's recommendation on the slide, which is to introduce an ordinance to amend San Mateo Municipal Code Chapter 2324, Energy Code, to make specific energy conservation and efficiency amendments that are written there on the slide for you. These amendments are often referred to as REACH codes, and staff's recommendation also includes the adoption of resolution making findings. I'll start with some REACH codes background and the City Council direction that shaped this ordinance. The California Building Standards Code standardizes the construction of residential and non-residential buildings in California, and the state building code is updated every 3 years, with every local jurisdiction in California required to adopt the new building code, which the city did last fall. Local amendments to the state code as related to sustainability and energy specifically are known as REACH codes as they reach beyond the state's requirements. Our previously adopted REACH codes expired on December 31st of 2025 as we entered a new code cycle that just began on January 1st of this year. Putting this into context of the city has a climate action plan with ambitious targets for greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and addressing energy use in buildings is critical because our emissions inventory shows that residential and non-residential buildings make up 38% of community-wide emissions. REACH codes are a policy tool that allows local governments to be leaders in our climate solutions, and the city of San Mateo has a strong history of adopting REACH codes that help meet our climate goals. The city first adopted REACH codes in 2015 and has continued to explore and adopt REACH codes since that year. The Electrify San Mateo Sustainable Building Strategy effort was completed in July 2025, and as part of that discussion, there was discussion on REACH codes for renovations, in which City Council directed staff to do broad community outreach on that topic. And so that is what staff did and completed that outreach effort in fall 2025, and those engagement results were presented as part of the November 2025 study session on REACH codes. The Bay Area REACH Codes Group is a collaboration that's supporting jurisdictions in the adoption of REACH codes around the Bay Area. Peninsula Clean Energy is a co-leader of this group, and they're also San Mateo County's not-for-profit, locally led electricity provider. So through this group, PCE offers technical support in the form of model REACH codes and staff reports, as well as access to technical support like through TRC. And TRC and PCE were critical in supporting the city's REACH codes engagement efforts that were with stakeholders and the broader community. These model codes and resources make it easier for staff to evaluate REACH codes, but they also help with adding consistency of REACH codes across jurisdiction boundaries. So this November 3rd, 2025 REACH code section reviewed the 4 REACH code options that were provided by the Bay Area REACH codes group. And this discussion went into great depth of detail of the cost effectiveness analysis, the estimated GHG reductions, the potential number of permits impacted each year, as well as cities with similar REACH codes. This presentation and report also summarized the broad engagement and outreach that was conducted, including through community and contractor meetings, the distribution of flyers throughout the community, as well as through our online social media channels. And it reported back the feedback we heard from this engagement, as well as the feedback we heard at the Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission about these 4 REACH code options. And so at this November 3rd City Council study session, the council directed staff to develop an ordinance that included all 4 REACH code options. And so what are those 4 REACH code options? Those components include cooling upgrades and requirements for single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes, a similar requirement for non-residential buildings, and then flex path and electric readiness requirements in single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes. And so while the November study session really went into depth of the analysis behind all of these REACH code requirements, this presentation and my next few slides give a pretty high-level and brief summary of the ordinance requirements. Starting with our cooling upgrade requirements for single-family homes, duplexes, and townhomes. This impacts projects where there is a new or replacement air conditioning system. A property owner can opt to install a new heat pump system, and there are no additional state requirements, or they can install a traditional air conditioning system and have to comply with additional energy standards, such as attic insulation or duct insulation. This requirement does not impact gas furnace replacements or repairs. The ordinance also requires more stringent energy standards for when a property owner is replacing a 5 to 20 ton system in a non-residential building. Again, very similar to the last requirement, there is no additional requirements beyond the state minimum for a heat pump installation, but there is a more stringent energy efficiency standard for an AC system installation. The flex path requirement requires that when a property owner opts to do an addition or alteration of 1,000 square feet in a single-family home, duplex, or townhome, this proposed ordinance requires the project to incorporate energy efficiency measures or electrification upgrades selected from a menu to achieve a target score of 12 points. And so there's a variety of different energy efficiency related measures that the homeowner can choose from. The name FlexPath is really derived from the fact that this is allowing the homeowner to elect the energy efficiency measures that best fit their projects or their own priorities. And so, for example, they would get points for a heat pump that was installed in their home, and then the different measures have different points associated with them. The types of projects that would be applicable to the FlexPath requirements are elective major residential addition and renovation projects that may include plumbing, mechanical, and electrical upgrades. And I'll also remind the council that the study session helped define the project definition, and so that's where that 1,000 square feet is coming from, as well as this target score of 12 points, which was discussed and deliberated at that last City Council study session. And then finally, the last component of the REACH Code ordinance is electric readiness requirements during specific addition and alteration projects, really focused on requiring pre-wiring for gas cooking, water heating, clothes drying, and outdoor appliances to reduce future retrofit costs. The proposed resolution includes express findings in support of the local amendments to the California Energy Code 2025 edition. And it also makes findings that the local amendments are reasonably necessary because of local climatic, geological, and topographical conditions. And pending City Council approval, the staff will file the REACH Code ordinance with the California Energy Commission and the Building Standards Commission. And so there are 2 approvals necessary before the city can enforce this ordinance, even if adopted. And so it can take several months. I'm hearing upwards of 3 or 4 months before getting an approval. So there is a delay, even if the City Council introduces and adopts the ordinance in the next, by the next meeting. There will still be time in which staff will have to file the ordinance and wait for those approvals. After the approvals, staff will educate the public about the REACH codes that were adopted, and this includes by providing information on our website, as well as through our customer self-service portal, and then developing various checklists and guides and forms that help our contractors and community members navigate the city's permitting process, as well as REACH code regulations. And annually, staff monitors and evaluates REACH code implementation and will typically provide a report out during our Climate Action Plan progress report, which comes before council typically in June of each year. And this is my final slide with the staff's recommendation for this evening.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. And at this time, I'd like to open this item for public comment. If you're in person, you can fill out a request to speak slip and hand it to the city clerk. If you are online or on the phone, you may raise your hand at this time. The city clerk will be tallying public speakers.
Mayor Lorraine, we have a total of 13 requests to speak on this item, which sets the timer at 2 minutes per speaker. So we'll begin with our request to speak in chambers first. And when I call your name, if you could please line up to my right, that'll help make sure we receive all of your comments expeditiously. Our first 3 speakers will be Gerard Manning, followed by Harry Moody and Terry Whitehair.
Good evening, Council. I'm Gerard Manning, and I'm a neighbour of yours from Burlingame. So I can't petition you as a resident, but I can tell you that if you implement these energy codes changes, you'll have massive support from residents and from cities throughout the entire Bay Area. Your leadership will have a hugely amplified impact, so what you do will count for a lot. As you've known, in the past this has happened with many innovations in REACH codes that started right here in this chamber and that have spread to dozens of cities in the Bay Area. I work with several climate and health groups who engage with the Air District and, as I said, dozens of cities throughout the Bay Area to improve both air pollution and climate emissions. These are active, really dedicated groups that constitute kind of a small army of concerned residents and citizens who are really waiting to hear good news from San Mateo taking a step forward, particularly on the AC to heat pump, to be able to do the same thing in their cities. If you pass this ordinance, not only will you be representing your residents who want to improve air pollution and climate impacts, but you will be doing the same thing for people throughout the Bay Area, and the improvement in clean air throughout will be to everybody's benefit, not least to your very own residents. Thank you very much for considering this.
Thank you. Our next 3 speakers will be Harry Moody, followed by Terry Whitehair and Elaine Salinger.
Thank you very much, and I particularly appreciate what the preceding speaker said about the importance of what San Mateo represents. I lived most of my life in New York City and in Washington, where I was vice president for AARP. The last time I was here was 2 years ago. I was speaking in favor of REACH codes then, and I'm here to speak in favor of REACH codes now. Why am I here? Why am I here? Since that time, I've published the first book, Climate Change in an Aging Society, first book on the subject of climate and aging. My 81st birthday was last week. My grandchildren live in South San Francisco and come here every week to a swimming pool in our backyard at 10 Scenic Way. Why am I here? Because I care about my grandchildren, and I care about people here in San Mateo. I care about the future. That's why I think we have to pass those REACH codes to support the ordinance change. We heard her earlier speak in detail about that. In detail. The ordinance codes for cooling upgrades are important. They're not important to me. I don't even have air conditioning. I don't want air conditioning. I don't care about that, but I care about my grandchildren. I live in a condo. I don't live in a single family house, but I care about my friends and neighbors, including the ones you'll hear about later, like the Whitehairs. They live in a wonderful house which exemplifies everything we need to know about climate change and taking care of the future. I'm proud that they're my friends, and I'm proud to be here in San Mateo. Time's running out for me, not just on that screen, but in our society, in California, on planet Earth. We can do it here in San Mateo. We've done it before. Do it again. The time is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Terry Whitehair, followed by Elaine Salinger and Brian Schmidt.
Thank you. I'm a long-time resident of San Mateo, over 40 years. Thank you. And I'm extremely concerned about the climate crisis. That's why I work with Elders Climate Action to activate thousands of elders across the country. But I think it's important that what you are doing as a council to support and do action at the local level for climate crisis. So I support the adoption of the proposed ordinance, and especially with the support of the adoption of the electric readiness standards, because they lead to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and prepare us for the air district NOx standards. They will also allow residents to be prepared should gas prices go up, which they predict they will. And I just want to close to thank the mayor and the council for your strong leadership in this area and your strong action. We are very proud of San Mateo and our council. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Elaine Salinger, followed by Brian Schmidt and Robert Whitehair.
Well, lucky you, I thought I only had a minute to speak. So maybe I'll slow down a little bit. So good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Elaine Salinger. I lead the San Mateo County chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, and I am here speaking to represent the over 1,200 members in the county and over 200 members who live inside the city limits. First, I also want to thank you for your leadership and on climate action. This is really important. We are in dire need of strong leadership, especially in light of the destruction and distraction that's going on in Washington. So let's talk money, because I think that's what's really the big concern. Everybody wants cleaner air. You know, everybody wants to electrify, but what you're concerned about is money. So let's talk about money. I want you to pass the REACH codes because the price of electricity over time will go down and the price of gas will keep going up. So why do I say this? It's going to go down because of cap and invest, which is the new name for cap and trade. And this will, they're going to invest, their cap and invest will apply rebates to the customer's electric bills, but not their gas bills. And the California Air Resources Board, CARB, plans to go ahead and endorse this. And it will also go down even more if the Make Polluters Pay bill is passed, because most of our increasing electricity cost is because PG&E is passing on the cost of the lawsuits for the wildfires and for undergrounding their electric wires. And so if the Make Polluters Pay bill passes, the large companies that are importing and extracting the oil and gas.
Thank you, Elaine.
Oh, is that 2 minutes already?
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, I just wanted to thank you
Thank you,
for
Elaine.
choosing courage over complacency.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Brian Schmidt, followed by Robert Whitehair and Seema Patel.
Good evening, Brian Schmidt from Menlo Park. We work on climate issues throughout the county with a special focus on Menlo Park. And here to support the staff recommendations, which follows the recommendations that you, the council, gave in November. I wanted to mention that I was here in the city on Saturday attending a program about interfaith focus on climate and religious needs for working on climate change and environmental issues. And at one point, someone was asked, one of the leaders in the discussions was asked, which city in the county is doing the best job on electrification? And they said at that point, they said Menlo Park. And I got up and afterwards, I talked to the person who provided that response. And I said, I'm going into San Mateo on Monday, and there might be a change coming Monday. So that I would at least say that San Mateo, if you follow this recommendation, you'll be one of the cities at least, maybe a little bit ahead of Menlo Park. I'm meeting with the sustainability manager for Menlo Park tomorrow. So I hope I can say, hey, you guys got to step it up a little bit because of the leadership that is being done here. The other thing I just want to add is the previous speaker talked about decreasing electricity costs. You might have noticed a jump in the cost of natural gas over the weekend due to international developments. So there is a definite risk with gas, and there's a good reason to move forward to electrification. The American natural gas prices are significantly lower than international standards. We are exporting a lot more natural gas. Those prices are going to equalize. It's going to become more expensive. And so for both reasons of economics and reasons of national security and international peace, there's good reason to electrify and take this action to fight climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Robert Whitehair, followed by Seema Patel.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Lorraine. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Newsom for bringing up the issue about electrification on the last item. That's a good thing to clarify and a good thing to remind everybody that we are moving forward with electrification and all new projects. I applaud the council and staff. I also applaud Peninsula Clean Energy and Blake and Taylor for all they're doing, and Andrea for all the great work they've done over the last 5 or 6 years on REACH codes. At your November 3rd, 2025 meeting, you considered and gave direction on building REACH codes for existing buildings. Those are what are before you tonight. They included cooling upgrades for residential and non-residential, and the flex path and residential and electric readiness. I support cooling upgrades for residential properties, including the alternatives spelled out in the document. I propose that cooling upgrades for non-residential properties have an upper threshold of 20. That's also in the ordinance. And I support the flex path score of 12 and then the 1,000 square foot threshold. That was thoroughly discussed at the study session. I would like to see some consideration being given to it in the future, maybe raising those. But I think an alternative might be is I ask this be revisited in the year to see how the 12 points and the 1,000 square feet have worked. I support electric readiness. It's a good way to be prepared. Other members have talked about the price of gas. They've talked about the times that come to other things. It's time to electrify. So thank you for all you do and have done for REACH codes. You know, we've been at this, all of us together, for the last 5 or 6 years or so. And it's been a really fantastic change in the attitude of electrification around the city because of all the fine work that you all have done. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker in chambers will be Seema Patel.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I currently serve on the Planning Commission, but I am speaking tonight on my own behalf as a resident. I think, as we all know, climate change is an existential threat to humanity, and it requires us to take big, bold steps now to address the problem while we still have time. San Mateo historically has been a leader in this area, something I'm very proud of as a resident here. And so I would encourage you to adopt this ordinance as drafted. I think it takes a lot of reasonable steps towards addressing climate change, and it gives property owners a lot of flexibility in how they meet these requirements. I know it's important to me and a lot of other people that San Mateo is a place that our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren can thrive in. And I think that this will go a long way in helping to ensure that our city and our planet remains livable for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to our virtual environment, where our first speaker will be Dashelle Leeds. Dashelle, please unmute your mic.
Hello, Mayor Lorraine and City Council members. My name is Dashelle Leeds, and I'm the Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. The Sierra Club strongly supports the staff recommendation of this ordinance, including all 4 code options. I'm filled with gratitude tonight. We're all fortunate to benefit from the work of the Bay Area Reach Codes effort, including PCE, to bring us excellent model reach codes. Thank you to Council for your November 2025 direction to explore these 4 code options. Thank you to Andrea and staff for a thoughtful and open drafting process, and a special thank you to the community members and advocates who contributed to this process, asked difficult questions, and pushed hard for the city to arrive at this excellent code. The policies before you tonight are urgently needed. Every new gas appliance that is installed in San Mateo is a missed opportunity to electrify. The AC to heat pump language in this ordinance encourages residents and buildings to electrify at opportune moments, such as when they replace broken air conditioners with the vastly more efficient electric heat pump. Every new gas appliance that is installed locks San Mateo into more fossil fuel infrastructure that the city is committed to moving away from. That's why it's so important to future-proof our infrastructure by pre-wiring buildings to support future electrification when additions and alterations make those upgrades pragmatic. This ordinance sends a strong signal to other municipalities and agencies that electrification is still a local priority and that cities can lead the way in creating and implementing effective climate policies. We need this leadership now more than ever to improve our air quality and reduce emissions. We hope you adopt this ordinance tonight, including all 4 options. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Wendy Chow. Wendy, please unmute your mic.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor Lorraine, Deputy Mayor Fernandez, council members, and city staff. My name is Wendy. Thank you for hearing all of our comments this evening. As a resident of San Mateo and a staff member at Acterra, Action for a Healthy Planet, I fully support staff's recommendation to introduce the ordinance for 4 reach code options. Reach codes are flexible, cost-saving measures that will lower bills as people transition away from fossil gas, also known as natural gas. PG&E's fossil gas prices rose sharply in 2025 and are expected to continue their upward surge. And today's latest geopolitical instabilities and armed conflicts are only worsening future fossil fuel prices. But actually, the main reason I support reach codes is that as a parent of a young person, I am concerned about indoor air quality. So much so that we run a filter paired with a box fan most of the day, and especially whenever we are cooking. Even though we cook on induction, we do like to be careful. Burning fuel, like gas, indoors leads to higher loads of particulate matter and produces many different harmful chemicals that gets into our lungs. Running electric appliances means cleaner air for us to breathe. Because of the clean air question, even though I'm a renter, my family chooses to use only electric appliances in my home. We have a gas furnace we don't turn on and a gas stove that we leave permanently off. We installed an electric heat pump water heater last year and are enjoying how efficient it is. I love being a resident of San Mateo, and I salute this council for not just supporting greener new construction, but also approving policies to improve existing buildings. There are so many more existing buildings compared to new buildings, so addressing these reach codes will create a much bigger sustainability impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Michelle Hudson. Michelle, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michelle Hudson, and I'm a longtime San Mateo resident. I'm also co-leader of the 350 Silicon Valley San Mateo Climate Action Team. For a number of years, I've been deeply concerned about the worsening climate crisis and the detrimental impact of climate change on our community, particularly on our youth and future generations. I urge the city to continue taking strong action at the local level. One of the most effective ways cities can do this is by passing policies that reduce greenhouse gas emissions from our local building stock. As such, I fully support the city's adoption of the proposed Reach Codes ordinance. I also request that the effectiveness of the flex path component of the ordinance be revisited in 1 year. Specifically, the council should consider lowering the square footage threshold and raising the target score. Thank you for your continued climate leadership and for your attention to this important issue.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Natalie Diaz. Natalie, please unmute your mic.
Hello, council members. My name is Natalie, and I'm a junior at San Mateo High School. I spoke on the adoption of the REACH codes in November, and I want to reaffirm my support here of the 4 additions to the REACH code plan. These codes are not only in line with San Mateo's commitment to sustainability, but also establish us as a pioneer for ambitious climate measures. This ordinance benefits youth like me who want to live in a clear-skied, asthma-free San Mateo 50 years from now. I look forward to living in a cleaner San Mateo, and I'm excited to see this ordinance pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Bruce Nagel. Bruce, please unmute your mic.
Hi, my name is Bruce Nagel. As mentioned previously, there are a number of environmental groups, and I'm interested in some of them as listed before. I think there are a couple of interesting things that have happened. One is the excitement and vibe in this chamber is electric. And we need to make sure that we bottle that and get it out to field so that people understand that there's a real need for doing this. The second thing is that we've got some real things are going to continue to develop. One of the things that's going on the side is these plug-in panels for solar on balconies. And it doesn't contribute a whole lot at this point, but it may be a way to get some of the apartment buildings to have the ability to do their own electric in their homes from the sun. And I think the important thing is that each of these things contributes more positive energy to moving forward with things. And you've heard it across a number of different groups, some of which are groups that I'm involved in as long as people are here. So I urge you to continue to move in this direction. I think there's a lot to be done, and you've got a good team working on this, and other places like Mountain View have also working on things. So we need to keep moving everybody forward and make sure that the successes in one place can be brought to another. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak and go on forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, we have one final speaker with the screen name SVYCA. Please unmute your mic.
Hi, good evening, council members. My name is Emma, and I'm a student at Aragon High School, as well as a co-lead for Silicon Valley Climate Action. I'm currently 16 years old and excited to graduate from high school, pursue higher education, and maybe even someday settle down and start my own family here in San Mateo. But at the same time, my peers and I are deeply concerned about the future of our planet. The climate crisis has touched so many of our lives personally, and we anticipate it only getting more frightening in the future. So we ask that tonight you once again choose to prioritize our city's long-term sustainability and well-being. Our team supports the adoption of this REACH code ordinance, including all 4 options. We also hope that you will revisit the ordinance in a year to review its effectiveness. We're incredibly consistent support for climate action. Thank you for all that you do for our city.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask if any council members have questions or comments. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Mine will be Nicole Fernandez Short. I am supportive of everything that was presented tonight in the recommendation. It is what we asked for when we did our study, and I appreciate you interpreting it. The one thing I would request is with the flex path, that in all the outbound education materials, whatever else we can do, that we have an actual chart that gives examples of how do you get to 12. Because, as I mentioned to Andrea earlier, when I looked at that first and I said, oh, there's a heat pump water heater. We have one of those. I'm already at 12. It was a very real understanding. I could tell my neighbors, this is not complicated, this is easy. So please chart your way to great success, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Newsom?
Well, I'd like to call out that in previous discussions of REACH codes, we've always had people coming in and opposing And what I think is a definite sign of progress is that no one has spoken out to oppose the reach codes. And to me, that is fantastic. I think, well, I can't speak for all of us, but I am definitely in support of these reach codes. I really appreciate staff's work to get us here. And the only other questions I had were, or I guess I'd also like to throw support for the revisiting of our reach codes progress in 1 year. Can we put that on in our just revisiting the effectiveness in a year?
Just want to see a majority council.
Well,
and we can provide an update in a weekly update if you want, or a weekly update.
Okay, that's fine too. I just want to make sure.
No, that's fine. We can go ahead and do that.
I have a related question, Councilmember. So after your comments, perhaps we'll get to expand a little more on that.
Just go ahead. You've already
Okay. Thank you for your indulgence.
No problem.
Andrea, I wondered if I could hear from you on any thoughts or recommendations you might have on what might be the most effective time to revisit progress following that. You mentioned, for example, in the presentation that even if we approve all codes tonight, there will be some time from this date in which we need to effectively apply to the state for them to be established. And so given that and the fact that these building code cycles are 3 years long, I'm curious of your thoughts on
Sure.
the best possible time to revisit.
Yeah, so I'll summarize again that after the City Council introduces and adopts a REACH code ordinance, the required process is for Building Standards Commission and California Energy Commission approvals. And Taylor and the team have been tracking other jurisdictions moving through the process right now, and it's seeming like it's taking a minimum of 4 months or so for that approval. And so we have to add 4 months from now-ish to the start of enforcement of the REACH codes. And then after things are being enforced, sometimes it takes time for projects in which are relevant to the REACH codes to come in, and we can track and monitor that progress over time. But it might not be that in that first week there are X number of projects related to the REACH codes. It's hard to say. And then to Mayor Lorraine's other point, this ordinance is tied to the 2025 edition of the building code. And Taylor, I'm looking back at you to see if there's anything clarifying about kind of the term of the REACH code effectiveness. That's right. Okay.
Thank you. And maybe just to follow up on that, assuming we have another REACH code process, another building code cycle that might be on a similar timeline as with other building code cycles, and we might consider new REACH codes. Do I have it right that we would be maybe looking at those in 2027 for the 28 code cycle?
Yes, that's the typical timeframe.
I see. And so I guess to me, I'm seeing the bookends of the potential for this to be most effective, to be kind of closing in. I mean, frankly, at the moment, I'm sort of the mind that revisiting it may not be terribly productive for us, because even if we were to revisit and then come to the conclusion that we want to change it, then we would be changing it not for 3 years, but for about a year or so. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, from a process standpoint, there is this delay of ordinance drafting, which might go quicker, right? Depending on the amendment, and then again waiting for those approvals before enforcing the new amendment.
Yeah, I mean, that said, the city has done that before,
yes.
And so I suppose I wouldn't want to throw away an opportunity. So I guess having had that conversation, it sounds as though we would maybe, if we were to revisit or get some kind of update, it sounds like the timing of that might be a little more than a year from tonight, for example. I don't mean to poo-poo that, so I think I suppose I'm amenable to a.
So how about this? We'll go ahead and we'll do a check, and it sounds like this will probably go into effect July 1st from this point in time if we're going about 4 months out. So we can do within a written report to the council of just where we're at 1 year out, but then really the public report would be as we are looking at the next round of code updates in 2027 to really display how effective this has been over the past 2 years. Does that kind of sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
seeing a majority of nodding heads here. Okay, we have direction.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Sorry, yeah, returning to Councilmember Newsom.
Yeah, I did hear something that one of the public commenters, Bruce, mentioned, and I was actually reading over the weekend, especially in Europe, and it's now starting to see in Latin America, there's a lot of these smaller solar installations that you can hang on your balcony, you can put in your backyard, and it's really exciting because it gives a new, much less barrier of entry for someone to put some sort of a solar system on their house without having to redo their roof and put solar on the roof. And so I'm really excited about the progress of this, and they're seeing tremendous fast growth in Europe. And I just would ask that as a city, we try to, the only concern I have about it is a safety perspective as far as attaching it to the home's electrical. So I would ask the city that we try to keep an eye on that as we move, as that technology comes forward quickly. I don't know that we can wait 3 years before we're looking at how that connectivity of these small solar, kind of DIY systems will attach to your home. And so I just would look for the city to kind of keep a pulse check on it so that we don't have some surprises where we're seeing home fires and challenges like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I think this is great. I think we should proceed. Do we have anyone else that wants to?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
I just wanted to thank all of you for your hard work in putting this together, and I do want to echo Councilmember Newsom's comments that we didn't have any opposition showing up, and I think that's in part because of what the work that the city has done to ensure that this is not a hardship for lower income residents. So I just want to call out the fact that I really appreciate the fact that this is a voluntary only program. There is a hardship clause exception. There's a repair exemption where needed, and there are there are not grants, but there's possible money to help folks who want to opt into this. So as the person who represents the part of the city with maybe the lowest average income, I just want to thank you for that while we can still expand on the good work and work on behalf of our community. I also want to congratulate Elaine Salinger for being named the Sustainability Award winner for Sustainable San Mateo County. You do a lot of amazing work here, and I'm really proud that you're a San Mateo resident. Congratulations.
Excellent, thank you. I certainly echo those plaudits. They are well deserved, and just want to thank those who presented tonight. Thank those who gave public comment as well for ongoing work on this over the years. This is a milestone achievement for our city, and I think particularly so this time. It's always important to consider next steps that in the case of reach codes, are cost-effective and a vetted pathway toward a more sustainable future. And I really appreciate being in a city that considers that to be part of its mandate. And as I've noted during our discussions related to our Electrify San Mateo exploration, this has become business as usual in our city. And that was particularly important this time because, as people may remember, last year there was an Assembly Bill 306 that actually our city ended up writing a letter against because it threatened the possibility of reach codes in the entire state. Then some of the elements of 306 ended up getting folded into a bill that did pass and get signed by our governor, AB 130, which we heard a little bit about earlier. But it contained exceptions for cities with language already in their general plan, already with targets in their climate action plans. And because of that, we are allowed to continue. And so it's because of the work that we had already been doing for the last decade together, we are able to continue to make progress amid headwinds and other challenges. So I want to thank Andrea and staff and previous councils and this council for making that possible. I want to thank Peninsula Clean Energy and the Bay Area Reach Codes for modeling the way, literally, and for making it possible for our city to more easily take vetted, cost-effective next steps, and in a fashion that allows for other cities in our county to do the same, if they are inspired to do so, because indeed, we can do it here. I'm proud and privileged to have represented our city at last year's California Energy Commission Summit, to share that at that time our city was exploring the AC to heat pump code, a version of which we have before us tonight. So I just want to appreciate that no step forward can be taken for granted, especially now. And really, it is those who are putting in the work on a consistent basis who are going to lead the way, and I'm proud to be part of a city that is doing so, assuming this passes. And with that, I would take a motion.
I motion.
Second. Sorry.
Thank you, and may I have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Svirko-Gaditsky?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. This concludes that item. And we now have another item. Item number 7, operation of leaf blowers, ordinance introduction, with a presentation by Andrea Chow, sustainability analyst.
All right, good evening, Mayor Lorraine, City Council members, and members of the public. My name is Andrea Chow, the Sustainability Analyst for the city, and my presentation tonight will review a proposed ordinance prohibiting gas leaf blowers. So the recommendation for City Council is to introduce an ordinance to amend the San Mateo Municipal Code, Chapter 1080, Operation of Leaf Blowers. And I'll start by providing some background on the topic and the direction received at the October 6th City Council study session on leaf blower regulations. Here on the screen, we have the city's current regulations, which are also attached to the staff report, but they limit the use of leaf blowers 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays. And the hours of operation apply to residential zoning districts in areas bordering residentially zoned neighborhoods. So essentially, our current leaf blower regulations really have these hours of operation on use. And then I'll also put into context that as of 2024, state regulations require new model years of 2024 or later leaf blower equipment to be electric, and remind you that the state's requirements do not impact existing gas equipment. At the October 6th study session, City Council directed staff to develop an ordinance to prohibit gas leaf blowers. This can help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address air quality impacts. And additionally, the City Council provided direction on when to begin enforcement and how to assign penalties on gas leaf blower operators. So what you have before you is a proposed ordinance that includes an effective date of January 1st, 2027. This is a clean start date that is roughly 9 months after the ordinance adoption, if the ordinance is introduced at this meeting. And over these next 9 months, staff will prioritize outreach and engagement with the community to promote compliance with the new regulations. And then, as directed at that study session, the proposed ordinance allows the assignment of penalties to the gas leaf blower operator, as well as to the property owner who hired or employed the services of a person or business using gas leaf blowers. What is needed for direction this evening when introducing the ordinance is selection of one of the hours of operation options for electric leaf blowers. So again, reiterating that the gas leaf blower prohibition is citywide, and these are hours of operation restricting electric leaf blower use once gas leaf blowers are prohibited. And so the three options to consider: option one retains our current regulations, which would mean community members and landscapers would not need to adjust their current practices. But I'll also remind you that option one only applies to residential zones and areas adjacent to residential zones, which means that other areas of the city do not have these limitations. Option two applies a more blanket citywide approach, and it would apply hours of operation to be citywide. This would likely have an impact on commercial businesses and even city operations, where leaf blowers are used to clear debris from parking lots early in the morning. This is usually to avoid interference with businesses. And so the city does this in our downtown garages and also in our parking lots, and one could envision this is true of existing commercial and office properties that are sometimes located very close to housing. This approach would be pretty simple to communicate, as there would be one set of hours of operation citywide. And then following on that city council direction to provide another option for hours of operation, option three establishes hours of operation that are citywide, but then has a specific carve out for specific uses, which includes commercial, office, and industrial use or city-owned property. And in those specific uses, these areas would have extended hours of leaf blower use beyond what is allowed citywide. So this approach ensures that we've got consistent hours of operation in areas where people live, where community members live. But this approach would result in some slightly different hours of operation on neighboring parcels within the same zoning district, which may create some impacts in some cases and could complicate enforcement. So these are the three options before you, and the staff recommendation tonight is to introduce an ordinance to amend the San Mateo Municipal Code, Chapter 1080. But again, you need to select one of the three options for hours of operation for inclusion in the ordinance.
Thank you for the presentation. At this time, we'll take public comment on this item. If you are in the chamber and you wish to speak, you may complete a request to speak slip, hand it to the city clerk, as Mr. Whitehair is doing right now. If you're remote, you may raise your hand. City clerk, please tally the speakers and let us know how many we have.
Certainly, Mayor Lorraine, we have received a total of 4 requests to speak in chambers. Currently, no hands raised in our virtual environment, so that will set the timer at 3 minutes per speaker. So when I call your name, if you could please line up to my right, that'll make sure we get through all of our comments tonight. Our first speaker will be Carol Wilhelmy, followed by Jared Manning and Nancy Gogan.
Dear City Council, to ensure success, an ordinance must be strong and enforced, and its purpose must be understood by the community. The purpose of the leaf blower ordinance is not to address complaints. It is to protect the health and safety of our community. This point can be clarified in the purpose section 10.80.010 of the municipal code. Upon receipt of code violation reports during the 9-month period leading up to the enforcement date of January 1st, 2027, city staff is encouraged to send courtesy notices to property owners and businesses. This will enable a quicker and more successful transition to cleaner tools and should ease the enforcement burden on the Code Enforcement Department once strict enforcement begins. Portions of this process can be automated. A successful ordinance must be equitable. Please adopt the ordinance citywide with no exceptions or exemptions and add Juneteenth National Independence Day to the list of federal holidays on which all leaf blower operation is prohibited. Please consider adding the language, "No person shall operate or authorize the use of an internal combustion generator to charge batteries for or provide power to leaf blowers." Please incorporate language in the ordinance now that will prohibit the use of gas-powered string and hedge trimmers starting January 1st, 2028 or sooner. Don't leave this task to a future city council. And last but not least, allow us members of the community to aid in this healing transition to better health for workers, businesses, residents, and visitors in our city. Thank you to the council and to city staff for doing the right thing, protecting our health, safety, and quality of life.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jared Manning, followed by Nancy Gogan and Robert Whitehair.
Hello again, I'm Jared Manning, back again, your Burlingame neighbour. I support the proposed ban, and for once Burlingame is taking the lead here. We've had experience for almost a year now with a leaf blower ban, and it has been fantastic. It is quieter, it is less noisy, it doesn't stink when I go for a walk, and it seems to be finally working really well. The electric machines are quieter and they are healthier. And in particular, I want to point out something that isn't said much. The gardeners are exposed to an enormous amount of unburnt gasoline and toxic fumes, 8 hours a day, every day of the week, every week of the year. I used one of these things when I was 20 for a summer, and I barely survived it. They are very, very dangerous. If OSHA regulated these things, they wouldn't exist. And so I strongly encourage, for that reason, because we are dumping a heinous amount of health impact on the most vulnerable and the most poor and people who frequently don't speak English to understand well enough their health impacts. That's really a travesty. I've talked to several gardeners in Burlingame about the transition, and they all kind of grumbled a little bit about having to get new stuff for which there were rebates and finding out how to charge. But basically, whatever needed to be done, they did. So it's been, as far as I can see as a resident, it's been a very smooth transition. And I congratulate you for taking this really important action. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nancy Gogan, followed by Robert Whitehair.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. For years, I have expressed to the City Council in various, I should put my glasses on, in various communications, my support of a leaf blower ban, both gas and electric, for many reasons. I would like to focus briefly here on one of the key underlying major issues, and it's very short what I'm going to say. The issue is whether we have to wait until another type of noise nuisance becomes widespread and then have years of efforts by residents to fix it. What can the city do to prevent the future proliferation of other noise nuisances, especially in neighborhoods? It's similar to what the first woman spoke about with gas, I don't know what you call them, hedge trimmers. There's a lot of other equipment that could be potentially nuisances. And it appears to me that the city's code section regarding noise violations, I think it's section 730, failed us. So I'm wondering, can we amend that somehow so that we do not have to wait until another noise nuisance is out of control? Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Robert Whitehair.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity. I was not going to speak about this until I saw the three options. I'm asking for option one, and the reason being already the gas leaf blowers are not following the current code. I live next door to Burrell Middle School. within earshot, and I mean really earshot. Every Monday morning, the gas leaf blowers start before 7. And I think I fall within, there's a distance and a decibel rating. I believe my home falls within that. We're going to pursue that. What I would suggest is that you do option 1 now, and if we find out that we think the electric leaf blowers will be much quieter, that might be an impetus for gardeners to take them on. So I really urge you to follow option 1, not 3, because they're already violating it. Because I know it's quarter to 7, sometimes 6:30 in the summer, I hear the gas leaf blowers. Whatever you can do to merge those two together, I'd be really supportive. Thank you for doing this. This is another great example of what the city is doing to make the quality of life here. And I thank Andrew for all the hard work she's put into it. And thank you, council members, for all you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Would any council members like to ask questions? Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
This seems to be where we are starting tonight. Thank you, Mayor. I am personally so thrilled because this was one of my blue sky objectives a couple of years ago. So thank you to staff. Thank you to my fellow council members for bringing this forward. And I am thrilled to see it coming to fruition. Thank you, Andrea. A couple of questions based on the comments we got from the public. Number one, it would seem to be a good thing to add that very positive reason as to in the purpose of the ordinance as to what we're trying to do here to improve health and not just to enforce. Is that a problem, adding language like that to the purpose of the ordinance?
You could. I mean, the purpose section already refers to air pollution, so I don't know if that addresses your concern or not, or if you want it to be more specific.
Do we have...
I don't have a screen share of the purpose.
Okay,
I could read it for you right now.
That would be great.
It says, it has been found that leaf blowers cause considerable noise and air pollution and have been the source of numerous complaints by San Mateo residents. This chapter is intended to regulate the use of leaf blowers to minimize noise and air pollution in the city.
I think that's fine. Okay. I agree with what you're trying to say. Number two, the idea of sending out courtesy notices prior to January 1st. What are we thinking about in terms of how we educate the owners and the
Yes.
landscape operators?
I think education will be key. I'll just reflect on the fall 2025 print newsletter that was sent out citywide, where we announced that leaf blower regulations are upcoming. We saw a surge in electric leaf blower rebate applications from residents. And, unfortunately, I didn't see that same surge in our community businesses. And so I think you're making a very valid point that education is really important, and we'll have to do a lot of different ways to reach our community members and our landscaping businesses, whether it's letters and other types of media, to make sure that there's multiple opportunities to see the information about the new regulations.
I would just encourage you to try everything, that make sure it's as effective as possible. Now, in terms of the holidays, don't we already include Juneteenth? Isn't that sort of on our calendar?
So the leaf blower hours of operation listed specific holidays in the ordinance, and it does not include Juneteenth as listed. So that is something we could amend and add.
Yeah, I would think that would just, because we do it for everything else. So yeah.
Yeah, so that could be part of the.
I would have to ask my fellow council members. I would support that. And then finally, I would agree that keeping the existing hours as it is what we should do, because we are going to be educating on so much, having to talk about, we're changing the hours too. That's one more thing to confuse people. Number two, I think the businesses are going to have a lot to deal with, and I don't want it to be the case where leaf blowers go down the streets of our downtown at 8 a.m., or because they have to, they can't do it earlier. I think that would just be a negative to our businesses and to all of our business areas. So I would strongly advocate that maintaining the existing hours is what we should do for simplicity for everyone. But I am very much in favor of this overall. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Who else would like to ask any questions? Councilmember Spivak-Goodinski.
I'm also in favor, and I agree with Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom.
Yeah, I agree with everything Councilmember Diaz-Nash said. One question that I did have, or a few questions I did have, was that this ordinance is only applying to leaf blowers. And in talking to Persona today, I learned that other gardening equipment doesn't fall under the same restrictions, meaning I can get up at 5 a.m. on Saturday and turn on my lawnmower as long as I'm not using a blower until 9. So I think that, not necessarily today, but I think that as a council, we should look at this, and we've heard this from public outreach today, that we look at some point, maybe after this has been in place for a year, applying this to all outdoor gardening equipment so that we have the same rules and regulations and enforcement can be standardized. The other thing that I thought was interesting in reviewing is that, you know, we have one rule for Monday through Fridays and another rule for Saturdays, with the no usage is supposed to happen on Sundays. I live in Sunnybray, and people are constantly using their blowers on Sundays because they mow their lawns on Sundays. And there's no ordinance to say you can't mow your lawn on Sunday. So my only thing with one, and that's where I lean, is to use the option 1, is to consider making it be the same for Saturday and Sundays. That's my feedback on that. And the other thing that I talked about with Persona a little today was that mixed use is not defined, meaning as we have new buildings being built where the first level is retail and the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th are all housing, there is no requirement. So it would most likely fall in those cases as commercial hours as opposed to residential hours. And so that might be something, again, not that we have to address today, but that when we revisit this down the road, we want to look at saying, you know, if we have 7 levels of housing above retail, we'd want the same housing, residential rules to apply. Does that make sense? So all in all, I'm very supportive of this. Thank you so much for the whole city's effort and staff's effort. It's great work. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Newsom, did I hear you say at this time you're favoring option 1, or did you have a favorite option?
I favor option 1, and I ask the council to consider making it Saturday and Sunday as opposed to just Saturdays.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I believe we have Assistant City Manager Horsberger who would like to comment.
So if I may, I would just make the clarification that I think 2 clarifications. So I would say that as far as the equipment that's not banned, it would still be subject to our noise ordinance. And so it's not the equipment, but it is the noise that's regulated. So there are controls in place. It's just not equipment specific. And so it's a matter of enforcement, and it is difficult to enforce during off hours, regardless what the source of the noise is. And then in terms of option 1, I would consider that residentially zoned districts would include mixed use districts where residential uses are allowed. So I do think that those would be captured. But if you wanted to make it even more clear, I think an easy amendment to the ordinance would be to say zones where residential uses are allowed, or something like that. We could make that language so it's more specific.
Thank you for those clarifications.
Yeah, actually, frankly, I think that seems to me like an elegant way to, I think, bring in a little bit of some of the concerns I feel like I heard from council last time with regard to where this would apply. I think if we were to make that change, it would end up applying to a decent portion of the city, at least that I think would have folks nearby who have something to say on the matter. For those who were in favor of option 1, I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sorry. I guess just thinking about what it's going to mean for a business downtown or anywhere in the city, that if suddenly you're not going to be able to do things earlier, when the businesses normally clean out the leaves, you have to do it during business hours, and that's going to cause problems for the businesses. It's also going to cause problems for the people who are wandering around wanting to grab their morning coffee or buy their bagels or whatever it happens to be. So I'm assuming that one of the reasons why we started out having different rationale for commercial is that we wanted to get it done so that the days could sort of function as to make San Mateo downtown or 25th or 42nd as attractive and welcoming as could be and not be full of leaf blowers. So that's my case.
I appreciate that, and frankly, I am convinced. And so, for what it's worth, I guess I'll throw my coin in at this moment and mention that I think it might be simplest and easiest to begin this process with option one, sort of as written. Although I appreciate the efforts made to try to hear all possibilities. So I'll just mention that. I think I agree with Councilmember Diaz-Nash's assessment, and do support everything else she said as well. Councilmember Strzelecki, how do you, any change?
I agree with Lisa. No change from me.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
I'm down with whatever.
So we're going to go with one, but nobody, do we have two more people who would be interested on Sunday, 9 to 5 as well?
Yeah. Second.
I am not down.
I think we should keep it as option one, try it, and then if we need to change it, revisit.
Okay.
As all good things in the city. Thanks.
Just to that point, would it be, I guess it sounds similar to the previous item, maybe we have some sort of update given to the council.
So we can do that, but this is going to start January 1st of 2027. So we can look at, we can provide a report out. If we receive many complaints, happy to bring it back and entertain that. So let's see how it goes. Start off with, and then we can bring it back.
That sounds good to me. Very good. Do we need, yes, we do, a motion? I would entertain one.
Second.
Mayor, can I
yes.
interject for one moment? So I think the motion would be the staff recommendation. I heard a discussion about Juneteenth. So I understood the motion to be the staff recommendation, option one, add Juneteenth to the list of holidays. Is that correct?
That's what I hear. I'm seeing some nodding heads.
Okay. Can we confirm, though, that that's the only holiday that is not on the list right now? Or is Memorial Day not on the list right now?
Through the mayor, I can just read the list of holidays so everyone's on the same page of what is included. New Year's, MLK, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, 4th of July, Labor Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Those would be the ones.
Sounds like that was the only one that was overlooked, so that's great.
Excellent.
I motion plus the holidays.
Thank you.
And option one.
And option one. I motion the ordinance and the holidays and option one.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Strzelecki.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine.
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you again. Okay. One more item. Item number 8, boards and commissions, establishment of annual appointment subcommittees and vacancy process. With a presentation from Martin McTaggart, our city clerk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Martin McTaggart, City Clerk. I'm here this evening to present on the proposed establishment of the Council's annual appointment subcommittees and to outline the vacancy and recruitment process for the upcoming spring boards and commissions recruitment cycle. This item is intended to provide staff with early policy direction in advance of formally launching the 2026 boards and commissions recruitment cycle. First, regarding incumbents with expiring terms, we are seeking clarity on Council's preferred approach, specifically whether eligible members in good standing should be considered for reappointment or whether all interested incumbents should reapply and participate in a competitive interview process. Council's direction on this point will shape the recruitment timeline, application materials, and outreach efforts. Second, with respect to appointment subcommittees, the rules establish a default structure. Council may confirm that structure this evening or provide direction to modify assignments or broaden participation amongst council members. Any adjustments will need to be finalized prior to opening the recruitment to allow staff to efficiently conduct interviews. And finally, we welcome any additional guidance regarding outreach. If Council would like to expand recruitment efforts, encourage applications from specific communities, or prioritize certain skill sets or lived experiences, this is an appropriate time to provide that direction before materials are published. For the 2026 annual boards and commissions recruitment cycle, the city will be recruiting for a total of 25 positions. This includes 16 regular commission seats, 9 youth commissioner seats. By advisory body, the expiring and newly created seats are as follows. Community Relations Commission, we have 2 commissioner terms. Library Board has 1 commissioner term with 2 youth commissioner terms. Park and Recreation Commission has 1 youth commissioner term and 1 commissioner term and 1 youth commissioner term. Personnel Board has 1 member term. Planning Commission has 1 commissioner term. Senior Advisory Commission has 1 commissioner term and 2 Youth Advisory Commission terms. Sustainability and Infrastructure Commission has 1 commissioner term and 2 youth commissioner terms. Measure S Oversight Committee has 2 commissioner terms. Mosquito and Vector Control District has 1 term, and the Civic Arts Commission has 5 newly created regular commissioner seats with 2 youth commissioner seats. With respect to eligibility, 2 commissioners have completed 2 consecutive 4-year terms and pursuant to Section 6.05 of the City Charter are therefore not eligible for reappointment. Additionally, 1 youth commissioner on the Senior Advisory Commission will turn 18 prior to the expiration of their current term and therefore will not be eligible for reappointment under the youth commissioner criteria. And finally, because the Civic Arts Commission was established by Ordinance 2025-10. All 5 regular commission seats will be open during this cycle. The initial term lengths will be determined by lot at the Commission's first regularly scheduled meeting to establish staggered terms moving forward. This slide summarizes the incumbents whose terms are expiring and who are eligible to serve an additional term. As outlined in the City's Council's rules and procedures, the City Clerk's Office administers the boards and commissions recruitment process. For those with expiring terms, our office notifies each commissioner in advance of their term expiration, verifies whether they are interested in continuing to serve, confirms eligibility under the City Charter and applicable term limits, and coordinates the recruitment process, including outreach and community engagement. The information presented on this slide includes each commissioner's name, the advisory body in which they serve, and the length of time they have served in their current role, and whether they have indicated an interest in continued service. This information may be helpful to Council in determining whether to authorize automatic reappointments for any eligible incumbents, or whether to require all interested incumbents to participate in the standard application and interview process as part of the broader recruitment cycle. Just a brief note regarding the Council's default process as determined by Council adopted rules and procedures. The default approach is for incumbent commissioners to participate in an interview if they wish to be considered for reappointment. Alternatively, the Council may approve an automatic reappointment by majority vote or consensus based on outstanding performance or the value and continuity in the role, and other factors that may necessitate such an action. In 2025, the Council directed that all interested incumbents reapply and participate in the interview process. Just to provide a little bit of context as we're going into the 2026 cycle, in 2025, spring recruitment cycle resulted in a 78% increase in applications from the year prior, which expanded community participation, awareness, and created a more competitive selection process. Staff also received feedback from some incumbents, including those that were originally appointed to partial terms, regarding the requirement to reapply within a relatively short time frame following their initial appointment. This slide provides a 4-year snapshot of application activity by board, commission, committee. As you can see, there was a significant increase in applications in 2024, with 60 total applications, and an even more substantial increase, as was mentioned, in 2025, totaling 107 applications citywide. That represents nearly a 5-fold increase to 2023 and reflects the heightened community awareness and engagement in the recruitment process. Several commissions experienced particularly strong growth in 2025, including the Library Board, Community Relations, Sustainability and Infrastructure and Planning, and notably the Youth Commissioner recruitment, which on its own received 20 applications. And this upward trend suggests that open recruitment has meaningfully expanded participation and competitiveness for appointments. This brings us to Council's first question for direction tonight. And that is, does the council wish to authorize automatic reappointment for any eligible incumbents, or require all interested incumbents to reapply and participate in an interview process? And there may be some policy considerations that may help guide council's decision making on this tonight. As was mentioned, there may be a benefit in terms of expanding community participation. Contrast that with the benefit that may be received from having continuity on boards and commissions, including institutional knowledge provided by those who have some service on those bodies. As was mentioned earlier, we did receive some constructive feedback from some of our partial term appointees who are required to interview again, that may have an impact on them disproportionately, as well as other factors, including performance and attendance at meetings. We'll now move to the next topic for council consideration, which is our appointment subcommittee establishment. Appointment subcommittees play an important role in this process, serving on interview panels, reviewing applications, providing appointment recommendations to the full council, and they also address both the scheduled vacancies and unscheduled vacancies that can occur throughout the year. Under council's rules and procedures, each appointment subcommittee must include the mayor or the mayor's designee, the council liaison to that respective commission, and it may also include up to 5 council members. Tonight, we're requesting council's direction on this structure and any adjustments council may have. Just a few notes as far as policy considerations for this topic. In 2025, a majority of the council, 3 or more council members, participated in all appointment subcommittees. When a majority of council serves on an appointment subcommittee, the interviews themselves essentially constitute a special city council meeting. And as a result, there may be some additional noticing requirements that apply and additional staff coordination. In the past, historically, smaller subcommittees were designed with the intent of providing some greater scheduling flexibility to avoid convening additional full city council meetings solely for the purpose of conducting interviews. And with that context in mind, we are seeking council's direction on the preferred structure for the 2026 cycle. Which brings us to question 2. Does the council wish to confirm the default appointment subcommittees as identified in Table 2 in the staff report, or modify assignments and or expand participation? We'll now shift gears and talk a little bit about outreach and recruitment. As was mentioned in response to prior council directions, staff conducted research into best practices among city clerks' offices statewide and aligned our recruitment efforts to conform with the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic framework. As part of that framework, we refined and expanded our outreach methods to broaden community awareness and participation. We're very proud of our boards, commission, and committee outreach and recruitment success plan that has been updated for 2026. It details at length community events where flyering and applications will be made available throughout the year or throughout the recruitment period. The next demography study is scheduled to take place in 2027, which will provide additional data to further inform these efforts. Looking ahead to 2026, the proposed outreach and recruitment success plan will incorporate any feedback provided by the council this evening, and will just a brief note regarding some feedback we received from council during our last discussion on this. We also introduced digital recruitment ads, which were very successful. We received over a total of 250,000 display impressions during the 2025 recruitment cycle. The council also directed us last year to look at opportunities for individuals to indicate interests serving in these roles through our request to speak slips, and we've been gathering those over the course of the last year, and we'll be reaching out to those individuals who've indicated that interest. One of the other pieces the council provided some direction to us during our last demography study in 2025 was to not only provide survey methodology that impacts current serving commissioners, but also to reach out to those who've applied to serve in those roles. And we did receive some feedback and some interest that'll help us refine our recruitment strategies, and it's broadly summarized on this slide. As you can see, question number 14 gives us a little bit of an insight into where people are hearing about these opportunities, and also maybe indicates the areas where we may need to do some work to help really bolster and have a more targeted approach. Overall, the feedback that we got from the applicants in terms of their interest and reason for applying was respondents reflected a broad age and residency diversity, indicating community-wide interest in civic participation. Some of our applicants provided some suggestions for improvement to the process, including things like providing more detailed information during the application period about the scheduling of the interviews themselves, and also just advanced information about the process and how to apply. Applicants indicated their motivation for applying to be strongly motivated by a desire to serve and contribute meaningfully to the community. And it appears from our research or surveys that email notifications on the city website appear to be the most impactful community channels. So this brings us to council question number 3. And staff would welcome any additional direction from the council regarding outreach strategies, recruitment methods, or any performance metrics for the 2026 recruitment cycle. Building on the expanded data from the 2025 demography study and the enhanced outreach efforts currently underway, this is an opportunity for the council to refine expectations and further strengthen the recruitment framework. In particular, the council may wish to provide guidance on key areas such as targeted outreach, identifying specific communities, demographic groups, or professional sectors where additional engagement may be beneficial. Also, just a brief note regarding the application and interview process. As was mentioned, we did receive some feedback as far as just upfront information available to prospective candidates about the scheduling. This is an opportunity for council to also provide some input on the application and interview process itself, as well as any considerations as it relates to post-interview process and any expectations for communications with applicants. And staff are prepared to incorporate that direction. And then just to summarize our next steps, council tonight will have the recruitment discussion moving forward on March 22nd. The application period for boards and commissions will begin, and then that'll close on April 24th with our plan to conduct interviews through May 5th to May 27th, and ultimately coming back to the council on June 1st to provide those appointment recommendations. To close this discussion, staff would like to return to the 3 key policy questions presented at the outset of tonight's item. Council's direction on these matters will help establish the framework for the 2026 recruitment cycle. Those questions again, reappointments. Number 1, does the city council wish to authorize automatic reappointment for any eligible incumbents, or require all interested incumbents to reapply and participate in the interview process? Question number 2, does the council wish to confirm the default appointment subcommittee structure or modify assignments and or expand participation? And finally, question number 3, outreach and recruitment strategy. Does the council have any additional direction regarding outreach strategies, recruitment methods, or performance metrics for the 2026 recruitment cycle? And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. At this time, we'll open public comment on this item. If you are in chambers and want to give a speaker slip to the clerk, you may do so. If not, if you're remote, you may use the raise your hand feature in Zoom or on the phone. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
No, Mayor Lorraine, we don't have any requests to speak.
Okay, I will close public comment for this item and ask for questions. Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
I just want to give like mad props to the city clerk's office and all of staff, including our city manager and city attorney. Just the amazing way we've expanded outreach has just, I mean, the numbers say it all. I'm just so proud of what you guys have been able to accomplish, just given like, yeah, sorry, like we gave you literally like 10 cents and some twine and you figured it out, and we thank you for your efforts in that. So I'm just gonna go straight to the questions. Number one, no. I would like us to interview all of the incumbent applicants. Sorry if you were appointed midstream, come on back. Two, does the council wish to confirm the default appointment subcommittee? So I'm down with the ones that are there, but I would like to make sure that we singularly call out or name planning and S&I as the 5 council members are invited, or default for the 5 council members.
Can you put up that slide of what we're appointed to? That one. Thank you.
So for me, I would like to see all 5 not mandate, but like invite for planning and S&I. And then what was the last question? Any other outreach?
Yeah,
No.
outreach or just to do with the recruitment process in general.
It was great. I love the creativity. It feels like it was successful. Thumbs up.
I'll go next. Number 1, I agree with Nicole. We should re-interview everybody, and we should all be on planning and S&I. Number 2, if I look at that expanded list, Martin, can I see that again?
Of course.
Thank you so much. I would like to be on the CRC interview as well. And
honestly, just because it becomes a special meeting, if this is very specific, assuming the council agrees, but because it becomes a special meeting for CRC, I'm happy to bow out of CRC.
Okay. And then, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm on planning and S&I. I would be interested in civic arts as well, just because there's so much appointment to be done. Like, we're basically picking a whole committee. And then number 3 on outreach, I think you did an awesome job. Just one additional thought. And I don't know if you're doing this already, but a lot of the high schools have like newspapers and things like that. Like if the city wants to, I don't know what the rules are, but ask them if we can use the high school newspaper to publicize that we have these vacancies. And then this isn't really a question, but it is just a comment on our youth commissioners. I've been thinking a lot about this and also thinking about the existing recruitment process. And I just wonder if we should consider, maybe not now, but in the future, adjusting the ordinance to have it be targeted at like 15 to 18 instead of 13 high school, just because we have a couple under 15 right now and they're not really making it through. They're like missing meetings, and it's really like working with the parents to get them there versus when you're in high school, you're starting to manage your own calendar. So I think actually logistically it might be better, but I'm open to discussing that at a different time. That's all. Thank you.
Excuse me, everybody. Could we maybe restore a little decorum and ask the mayor if you wish to go and take turns the
My
way we
apologies.
usually go? Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilmember Davis.
Okay, through the mayor. Thank you very much. Okay, the first question, I actually disagree with my colleagues because on the first one, because I was very enthusiastic about having everybody reapply who's been on a commission. We went through so many interviews with people who'd been on the commission for 6 months, for 8 months, for 9 months, And it really, I don't think it was fair to them. And I don't think they could really contribute as much because they'd only been on for 6 or 8 months. So there wasn't a whole lot different than they would have to say. So I would say where I would prefer to go is anyone who's served a full term, you absolutely have to come in for an interview. Just like all of us can't say, we want to be on city council again. That's it. We have to go out and run for reelection. I think, having an interview but it's incumbent, I think that's my reason for saying that. So that's what I would advocate for. Also, I agree with Councilmember Schwicker-Goditsky's comments about when we can, I guess in the next cycle, having it be high school and not below, because I think there are a lot of unique challenges, and I think that just makes more sense. And we're doing this and learning along the way, so we have to refine what we're doing. I also would say that if there is anyone of any age who is not meeting the attendance records, that no matter how long they've been, whether it's 3 weeks or 3 years, that they should have to reapply. Because I think if, for whatever reason, if you're not interested or something, and you're not showing up at meetings, you're not fulfilling your responsibility. So that's sort of that. In terms of the default appointment subcommittees, I have no need to be on anything other than what I'm doing, but I think it's fine to say if you want to, you're more than welcome to. And I'm more than happy to have anyone come and be on any of the commissions that I'm doing. But I would say let's make it an invitation to apply rather than we all have to be on it, because I think that turns into a scheduling nightmare. And,
Sure.
and I know staff went through a lot of stress last year trying to make it all happen. And then in terms of the third question, beside the fact that you've done an incredibly wonderful job, I would just say, what new things can you do in terms of social media, since that's been so incredibly successful? And even in 12 months, I'm sure there have been incredibly new things you can do on social media that we haven't done. So I would just keep experimenting, trying, keep doing it. You're doing a great job. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do apologize for my tone. Councilmember Newsom.
No problem. And I was going to say, let's get your permission, so I didn't intend to imply otherwise. Okay. As far as number one, I agree with making everyone reapply. I guess I also hear what Lisa's comment was about partial terms. Do we have an idea of how many of the commissioners are currently on a partial term that are coming up for renewal?
Certainly. So currently we have a total of 4 commissioners who fit into that category, and I can just briefly run through those. So in Community Relations Commission, Jennifer Kim is currently on a partial term. Library Board, Allison Jolie is on a partial term. On Park and Recreation, Peter Witcher is on a partial term. And on Measure S Oversight Committee, William Yang is on a partial term.
Well, what about sustainability and infrastructure, Mayor?
What?
No, I believe that there's a commissioner on sustainability and infrastructure who's 3 years and 10 months.
It looks like Commissioner Michael, I think is who you're referring to, is currently in the middle of her first full term. So she's not technically in a partial term. She was appointed to a full term.
Oh, so she's not up for reappointment. Okay, then I'm my mistake.
I mean, maybe the compromise is instead of all 4 of them, maybe we have them, if they've served less than a year, we make it be they don't have to reapply.
So that would currently only apply to one commissioner. Allison Jolie is the only who would fall under that category.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Next thing. As far as the council, I agree with Councilmember Fernandez's comment. Like, I would think all 5 council members should be invited for both S&I and planning, and I would want to be. As far as comment number 3, okay. I guess one more thing before I move on to number 3. On number 2, I was the mayor last year, as you all know, and I did not sit. I punted on only 2, and so I would like to make sure that I extend that offer to you, Mayor Lorraine. If you would like me to cover another one for you, for example, personnel board or something that you might not want, I'd extend that to you because I think in the month of May, I was only not in city meetings like 3 of the 20 business days. And so I want you to know that I support you. If you need me, I would be more than willing to cover more than 1 or 2 that I'm already applied to. And then the last one is, let's see. All in all, I think the recruitment has been incredible. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, so great work to you all. I did hear from my daughter, Mara, who is on the publicity committee for Aragon High, and she was disappointed that her father did not communicate to her about this last Park and Rec opening. And so my suggestion, actually her suggestion, is to make sure that we reach out to all 3 of the high schools and maybe Sarah as well. And if they have a publicity committee or newspaper or what have you, newsletter, morning announcements, that we put that in the cycle. She was mad, and we may see a future applicant down the road, which I will recuse myself if she does. Then what else? The only other thought was, and I know we don't always have time, and not all these groups will meet before the application period, but whenever possible, I think it's important to try to tell them, hey, there's an actual planning commission meeting, twice before or once before or what have you. So trying to communicate that as part of the process, I think, is very helpful, and encouraging them not just to watch it online, but if possible to come in person, because it's a very different experience to sit through an hour-and-a-half meeting in person as it is to watch it 2-speed on YouTube. So those are all my suggestions and feedback. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course. Thank you very much. On the subject of number 1, and I apologize, Martin, I feel like you answered a question from Councilmember Newsom on the partial terms and how partial they were. There was some discussion at the council, some nodding of heads about potentially, I think what I heard is being okay with considering reappointment for those who had not yet served of 1 year. I was curious if you could remind me from what you just mentioned, how many of them who have a partial term at this point have I was thinking of something like 2 years maybe as like a half a term, and would that change the math at all here?
Sure, I can run through just the individual commissioners serving a partial term. So Jennifer Kim, at the point of the expiration of her current term, would have served 2 years in that seat. Allison Jolie, as was mentioned, would be less than a year. Peter Witcher would be almost 3 years, and William Yang will also almost be 3 years.
Okay, so it sounds like it wouldn't in this particular instance. I guess I would like to ask council if they had any issue with potentially extending it from 1 year to 2 years.
I just think this is about fairness, right? Like, we're asking people to go through a process. So if we cut some people and not others, then why are we having everyone interview again? Like, if we're wanting to be fair and re-interview, everyone should go through the process equally.
Okay. I guess, though, I wonder if it seems equal for those who are not getting a full term, because I think when people interview for a term, that's one thing.
I understand that, but we have a new council. We're trying to, verify that everyone's adhering to the code of conduct and maintaining the highest ethical standards. We're trying to really up-level, what our commissioners do and how they comport themselves. That's where this came from last year through Deputy Mayor Fernandez. And so if we want to continue that, education or re-education, then everyone has to go through the interview process.
Yes, Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Thank you, through the mayor. I guess I would be concerned about doing it too frequently, because I think we would see a drop in the number of applicants applying if they know applying to partial terms. If they're only going to be on for 6 months and then they've got to reapply all over again, that might be a downer, Yeah. So, yeah.
If I may.
Please.
But they're reapplying and then they go through a 10-minute interview during 1 hour of their lives relative to, it's not like they're going through as someone that does recruiting for a living, it's not like they're going through a full interview process, 60 minutes for 5 days meeting each of us. They're literally 10 minutes between 2 to 5 people.
Yes.
It does seem, at least with number one, it does seem like we have a majority on that item where we do want everybody to reapply. So I don't necessarily know, I don't necessarily know that the discussion is needed.
I'm just trying to see where the majority, because as I'm looking at it, I heard, Rob, you wanted to reapply, but you wanted to have some carve out for the reappointment.
For 1 year.
Yeah, for 1 year. Then I heard Lisa saying she wanted a carve out of a reappointment. Correct, Lisa? You want them to have a carve out to allow them?
If they haven't served a full term.
Yes. And then I hear also the mayor saying he wants to have some type of, process of someone who's allow people to not have to reapply mid-tier. So that's the 3 that I was following here for majority on number 1.
Just on number 1, just to put it in perspective. So there's 25 candidates. We're literally talking about 4 people. So 21 of them are going through the full interview process. We can interview 4 more.
Well, actually, I wanted to add to this conversation, unfortunately, for some, because I feel like among those are youth commissioners, and they are given a 1-year term with an option to, I guess, effectively reapply for a second 1-year term. And it seems to me that even that seems a bit excessive, given that, I think it would seem to me I was going to propose that there might be an option to allow for those who have served a term in good standing to maybe have something like a separate discussion with the Board or Council liaison and the staff liaison to just kind of check in and get a sense of like whether this is mutually valuable to consider a second year, and if so, potentially avoid opening an interview process for the second 1-year term. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, through the mayor. I believe there's only 2 youth commissioners right now that need to be. There's 5. Oh, there's 5.
Let me just bring up the list real quick.
But 3 are new, correct?
So the current youth commissioners who fall into this category are Oliver Baker, Dahlia, and Pranav, Zachary, and Advika.
And yes, I apologize for earlier. I think, we seem to be engaging in a discussion here, and I don't mean to have decorum get in the way of a discussion. I think I will yield and retract my previous statement and just ask that we maybe keep looking at each other and.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Fair enough. In terms of the youth commissioners or any of them, would it make a difference? I think you mentioned in the staff report that there was an issue with attendance. by one of them.
Yeah, currently we just have one youth commissioner there are some noted attendance issues.
So in that case, I would say, and this was something we didn't talk about as a group, if there was an attendance issue, then I would think it should be a requirement to reapply. I mean, absolutely from the get-go. I don't know if that makes any difference to anybody.
I see 3 nodding heads, at least 3. Do we all have agreement on that? I see that. Okay. We'll add that.
I think that makes sense.
And if just looking at it, I'm not going to die on this hill, so I'm happy to compromise wherever the group wants to go. I was just most concerned about, because I saw this last year and I experienced it. People had been appointed for 6 months and they've got to come back and do it all over again. And I know you say it's not so many people, but I got a lot of really poor feedback about the process from people. And I think we need to be sensitive about that. But 6 months versus a year is a very different thing, or 2 years. So.
Yes, Nicole.
If I understood Councilmember Newsom's larger motion, I would be fine with a 1-year cutoff. If that's,
So that's 3.
But this is not specifically youth commissioners, it's all commissioners.
No, this all commissioners. That's what I've heard.
Okay.
For number 1, basically what I've heard is that everyone has to reapply, unless you have served less than a year.
Yep.
And if you're a youth that has attendance issues, they need to reapply and interview.
Anyone with attendance
Or-
issues.
Yeah,
It's just
anyone.
in this case. it's
Okay, anyone. But in that case, it was a youth.
Yep.
Just could we just put in the notes for whenever it's possible? I know we can't do it now, but that we examine what Councilmember Schwartz-Kuditsky was saying about making it a high school as a sort of a minimum.
I saw a majority asking for that review in the next time.
Very good. Let's go then to number 2. I feel like I heard from at least, I think I heard from 3 council members interest in having all 5 added to Sustainability and Infrastructure and Planning Commission. Yes.
Invited to participate. Right, because I'm going to, as an example, I'm going to have some travel schedule problems in May, and I don't want to bollocks up all of these interviews if it's sort of, we have to fit it around my schedule. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate that, and my understanding. I mean, I'll ask maybe just a quick question of the city clerk to confirm. It seems to me that right now all of these are open for all 5 council members to potentially participate. Right?
Correct. I think tonight we're looking at establishing the appointment subcommittees. I'm hearing for planning and S&I. There's an interest from a majority of the council that those appointment subcommittees be extended to include all 5 council members. If there's a scheduling conflict, that council member can be recused or not attend the meeting, be excused from the meeting.
Through the mayor. I would also like to make sure that the ethics question stays as one of the 6 questions that we ask. Thank you.
I see 3 or more nodding heads on that.
So I appreciate what Councilmember Newsom said on this because to me, while I can appreciate that we certainly want to have at least 2 members on appointment subcommittees, the idea that the mayor necessarily has to be involved in all of them, I think is one that I frankly disagree with. I think the 5 council members are, largely equal and would represent equally in any of these appointment subcommittees as far as I'm concerned. I think it is important to have the border council liaison because that member would have, assuming the greatest amount of understanding of what's going on in that border commission at the time and has likely had some interaction with the members, et cetera, beyond the other members. So I think what I just wanted to offer here is that if there were a council member interested in being a part of any of these that they're not currently a part of, I think Deputy Mayor kind of hinted at this with Community Relations Commission. I would second that and just note that I think if, as long as we have 2 members in the appointment subcommittee, I would offer to opt out of ones that have an additional member, such that we don't necessarily have a special meeting for those and still have the requisite number. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, would you be able to tell us which ones you would be willing to opt out of, or don't, so that we can attach ourselves? Do you have any in particular?
No. Not necessarily. I think it's not. To me, I think it's fine for the mayor to be the backstop to make sure that we have a filled appointment subcommittee for any and all. To me, it's more like I seem to recall last year, for example, we had a number of additional people interested, and so I just wanted to. I think I'd rather pivot it that way and see like who had. I believe Councilmember Speaker Goditsky mentioned some interest in Civic Arts Commission and perhaps some others.
Yes, I definitely want to interview for CRC.
Okay.
And Civic Arts would be nice. And then I definitely want to be on planning and SNI as well.
Through the mayor, just so I understand the direction provided to staff. So what you're essentially saying is if you would opt out if there's at least 2 council members attending. So for example, Civic Arts Commission, you've been effectively replaced with Councilmember Svirko Goditsky. Likewise for Civic Community Relations Commission. Am I understanding correctly?
Well, I don't mean to overcomplicate this. I was offering, I think, especially where I'm the mayor as opposed to the liaison. So it just so happens that as CRC, I am the liaison. So that's what I think Deputy Mayor Fernandez was getting at. It was a similar offer and idea.
Please feel free to remove me and replace me with Councilmember Svirko Goditsky.
You bet. Maybe the most effective way to go through this would be just to go down the list.
Yeah,
Sure.
So, Civic Arts Commission, I currently have Councilmember Svirko Goditsky and Councilmember Diaz-Nash. For Community Relations Commission, I have Mayor Lorraine and Councilmember Svirko Goditsky. Library Board, I have Mayor Lorraine and Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Okay.
Park and Recreation Commission, Mayor Lorraine and Councilmember Newsom. Personnel Board, Mayor Lorraine and Councilmember Svirko Goditsky.
Mayor Lorraine, I'd be willing to take that if you would like it.
All right. That sounds great.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
And then Planning Commission, I heard earlier that all 5 council members will be invited to participate as members. However, scheduling conflicts may mean that certain council members are unable to attend the interviews. And that also applies for Sustainability and Infrastructure.
Yes.
Senior Advisory Commission, I have Mayor Lorraine and Deputy Mayor Fernandez. Measure S Oversight Committee, Mayor Lorraine and Councilmember Svirko Goditsky.
Mayor Lorraine, I'd be happy to take one for the team for Measure S if you care one way or the other.
I would be happy to. Yes, I think if you don't mind.
And lastly, Mosquito and Vector Control District is Mayor Lorraine and Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
I would also be willing to take that one if you want. But
wow,
you're entirely welcome to it. It's very difficult to. It took me half the year last year to get the one applicant, so I don't know that we'll have a lot of people to interview.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna have at least one. So, I mean, yeah, I am definitely gonna say yes to any offers to take these. And I appreciate this.
Sorry, it should say Newsom.
That's going to be Newsom right there.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Fernandez and Fernandez.
Yeah.
I am but one woman.
I think that completes it.
Excellent.
okay?
Yeah, I think we are.
All
Does
right.
it, are we okay? This is great.
All right.
I want to, Martin, thank you, and thank my fellow council members for negotiating that. I think we ended up in a good place, and I appreciate this. On number 2, and number 3, I think team, I did want to mention something else. Let's see. Firstly, I did just want to ask Martin, can you just remind me, do we have an email list for board and commission openings?
Yes. So part of our outreach will be to, you mean like a subscriber list for people who are interested in applying for those positions? Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. I did want to bring up a different sort of related topic, which is, I think I am in support of current outreach, and I appreciate the comments that have been made by others on that. But I was interested in diving in a little bit to the interview materials and questions, and I feel like I'm not going to be able to do that effectively tonight with current council, just because, for example, I'll just note that I shared the county has an evaluative rubric and specific questions that are targeted toward trying to increase its diversity among those who represent its boards and commissions. And I had shared this earlier with staff, but I think it has not necessarily been brought back before all council members at this time. And Deputy Mayor, do you want to add something?
Oh, I was just wondering, Mr. Mayor, perhaps we could create a subcommittee of maybe you and me to go over the 2026 questionnaire, and we can bring that back to council in a timely fashion.
Well, I think that's a great suggestion. That was actually something I was planning on suggesting because, frankly, we had a subcommittee for liaison assignments, and I thought we had a great discussion that with Martin that led to, I think, an update to the process that will come before council that I think is fruitful, and I wanted to consider the same. And so if other council members are amenable, I would appreciate that opportunity.
So just to jump in, because I also want to look at workload for our staff overall. So that'd be bringing a whole nother item to the council to have another discussion on. Maybe alternatively, would it be okay for the subcommittee to do this work and then we provide a report out to the rest of the council, and if they have any issue, they can come to me to talk to me about that? Would that be okay? Instead of having to schedule a whole nother item?
Yes, but through the mayor,
But I heard ethics for everyone, right?
Yeah, I'm adamant about ethics.
I
Girl,
heard
you'll
the
get
majority
ethics.
already
I
on
promise you, you'll get
Yeah,
ethics.
I don't think that's an issue.
that. I heard a majority on that. Is that okay with that approach to save staff time and council meeting time?
Okay, I appreciate the suggestion. I appreciate everybody's willingness to try this. Okay, excellent. Those are all my comments. Yes, Councilmember Newsom.
I'm sorry, I meant to ask this, and this was actually a question. Can you go back to the slide of the effective outreach in the past? Wait, yeah, that one. No, one more. That one. So I couldn't help but notice that 50% say other. So I don't mean to give you more work, but can you help us define what the other is? Because that's far and away that most people are finding out about it, and so.
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority that selected other with responses noted email notifications from boards and commissions and the city website, family members, school counselors, school district. And those are the main avenues that people have found, and it's consistent with the direction that we have from council as well as it relates to reaching out to school counselors.
Great. Yeah, the only suggestion I have for next year when we do this again is if there's one of those that's the majority of that 50%, that should just be its own category.
Word of mouth.
Yeah. Thank you. That was all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Very good. I believe that closes this item.
We have our direction. Thank you.
And now we have reports, announcements, and committee updates. Does any council member have any? Council member Sphere-Hookedis.
Just two quick ones. So Friday, March 13th is the Samaritan House Gala. You can still get a ticket. And then I believe March 20th is Lights and Sirens. So make sure you check that out through PAL. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Yes, Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
I just wanted to report out to the public that our mayor sent a letter following up on a request that we had made last week to the president of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, requesting that the county hold an in-person community meeting and that we would help to publicize about the proposed 101 North El Camino Real project, the Behavioral Health Recovery Center. And so thank you very much, Mayor and staff, for getting that out the door in such a timely manner. And we will follow up.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
It's only been a week. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll just throw out a quick one that I represented our city in the Peninsula Clean Energy Board meeting this last week. And I just wanted to give a quick note or two on what we discussed. Firstly, you may recall last year there was some discussion about, and in fact there was action taken to replace the Community Advisory Committee of Peninsula Clean Energy with a quarterly that turned into a bi-monthly community feedback forum series. And the first of these will be this Wednesday in Half Moon Bay at 5:30. And I heard that there's already pretty good attendance, and so look forward to learning how that goes. It's one of the main topics is on batteries and resiliency, which is of course an important topic in the coast. Additionally, they're going to be cutting a ribbon at the San Mateo Community College District's Sustainability Hub at around 2:00 at CSM. And if I can make it, I will try my best to do so because that sounds like a great occasion. Additionally, there was a bit of discussion on a community solar offering that Peninsula Clean Energy has. And there's been a bit of shifting in how exactly it participates. It gets some allocation through the CPUC to get reimbursed by investor-owned utility money. So this is effectively a free expansion of solar that can benefit folks who might not otherwise be able to install their own solar. Renters and other vulnerable customers can participate in this program. At first, we were sort of buying the allocations from Marin Clean Energy, who had their own sort of procured project, and it sort of qualified for this, so we were able to participate in a joint manner there. But we have since reached an agreement with a project that is in Los Banos, which is actually part of Peninsula Clean Energy's agency, jurisdiction. Is true. It's just the city of Los Banos, not quite all of Merced County at this time, but it's been beneficial. So it was great to learn about how we're continuing to expand on that and give through participation discounts on generation to people who already qualify for Carefera and Peninsula Clean Energy discounts. So just wanted to share that as a bit of what we discussed. And I guess I'll leave it there. But thank you, everybody, for a good evening. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting.